Greetings, true believers. We're here. Yeah, I'm really excited for this conversation. We'll probably dance around for a second or two while we wait for people to pile in. But we're here with Gordy Two Shoes, Slick Dissident. Gordy's all bright and bushy-tailed, wide-eyed because he didn't stay up till 3 a.m. weaving with us last night. He got off lucky. But if you guys didn't catch Weaving Spiders, welcome episode 68. It was a doozy, a barn burner.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to redo the work, do my homework late, and turn it in later. Now I got to do some study and watch until 3 a.m. tonight to analyze it for next.
You have all week, just like everybody else out there. So what's up in the chat? We got one-on-one in the chat. His body is ready, he says. My body is ready. Okay.
Oh yeah.
On the Rockfin side, we see Kabir. What's up? Shannon, good to see you. Yes, love it. I do need to come up with some nice little intro music so people can pile in and not really miss the beginning, but we're going to take a few moments here before we start. And since this movie, Shang-Chi, which, by the way, if you haven't seen it, it's actually, in my opinion, I'll see what you guys think. In my opinion, is worth watching. I thought it was great for an action movie, comic book, superhero-y movie. It did follow some of the formulaic aspects, but the choreography was nice and the story wasn't horrible. And a lot of the imagery was nice too. So yeah, what did you guys think overall before we start with this I-ching throw?
So compared to the Eternals, it's leaps and bounds as far as acting, and that's not saying much because this acting wasn't great either. But
some was all right, some wasn't so good.
Yeah, it was okay. But
I'm not a good judge of acting, to be honest.
I mean,
too naive.
But being a child of grown up on kung fu movies, I mean, what's not to love about this thing? It's got all the magic and kung fu and stuff that we loved as we're kids, which we know already is one of those nostalgia buttons that they love to just push on our generation that grew up on UHF, kung fu theater at 7 a.m. on Saturday and Sunday mornings.
Yeah.
That if you grew up in shitty little podunk town America, that's all you had was kung fu theater.
Yeah.
And
exploitation cinema.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Blaxploitation and Bruce Lee was that was the shit, man. And Godzilla movies, right? Godzilla movies were the best. So
I wasn't big into movies for a long time, but now I'm on a samurai movie kick. And Gabriel's got me into Lone Wolf and Cub, which is definitely labeled exploitation film, but I thought it was pretty good. Yeah, but before I ask Gabriel his overall thoughts, non-analytical maybe, but just the feel he got for the movie, I wanted to say, if you didn't watch it and you don't intend to, this could still be an interesting stream for you because we are going to cover a lot of symbolism and concepts that are bigger and larger beyond just this movie. And we'll, like the last month, we'll go through the plot, hopefully in a synopsis level, well enough that you'll get the gist of what we're decoding. So we got some screenshots. If you're out there listening to the RSS feed, audio only version, might like to pop over into YouTube or Rockfin and see our handsome mugs and the imagery we'll share with some of our commentary. But Gabriel, what did you think overall?
I definitely agree with Gordy. It was quite a step up from Eternals. It was nice because it had much more interpersonal dynamics going on. There was an actual hero's journey involved. And also the overall theme was much more personable in that it has to do with multi-generational trauma and, dealing with, carrying the legacy of whatever the fuck our parents put us towards. It's very pertinent to modern times in a kind of neat way. And it's got that standard Walt Disney one parent dies at a young age trauma. You got to have that or it wouldn't be mind control.
Very, very good point there. And I liked the overall theme too, what you said about it being personal and there's a hero's journey.
Mm-hmm.
the main character, as we'll discuss probably throughout this analysis, had to balance and find. It was all about like the journey of self-discovery for the main character, Shang-Chi, as he learned to understand and integrate both the light and darkness in his heart. Very much a yin yang, very much a, making the darkness your own and applying that trauma and the growth that comes out of that trauma to forge your own path. And I appreciate that about it. Maybe a little overwrought in some aspects of that part of the plot if we're like coming at this from a like a film critic level, but I don't consider this work we're doing here or myself a film critic. In fact, I kind of despise the concept of people who their living is eviscerating other people's creative work and not actually outputting anything creative of their own. So, with the criticism that we have for the film that does come up, it's just observational, not objective, and everything's preference. So overall though, yeah, I would say that this movie was a lot of fun. Some of the action sequences, especially when we talk about the first big fight on the bus, I was pretty much as excited for that during that fight scene as like what I remember it feeling like when I saw Morpheus and Neo fighting in the dojo in 1999. It's like, this is some good choreography. There's a lot of parkour involved. And so as far as like a ride, and I watched it a second time with my family. The first time I was on this tiny laptop. The second time I watched it at my dad's home theater on his couch bed. It's a huge couch. That was really an entertaining way to watch it because the color grading is pretty fantastic. And there's like color symbolism in this film and really in every movie. Eternals, that was the thing too, that maybe we didn't touch on a lot, but the color symbolism was a big part of this particular film that I'll get into. So what we're going to do to kick off, now that we've got some people here with us, thanks for joining. I know this is super exciting to everybody in the world as like our usual cosmological gravy trains, but we'll get into some awesome stuff. I have no doubt. We're going to kick it off with, because this is a Chinese film in a sense. I mean, it's American Chinese in many ways, but there's a lot of Chinese imagery and themes going on. And you know me, I'm a big I-ching guy. So, oops, dropped the coin. We're all going to throw coins and we're going to get an I-ching card, possibly two, and see how that reflects our analysis and if this I-ching hexagram is pertinent to the story of the film, which I expect it will be. Throwing coins is always that way. So let's do this thing. We're all three going to throw one coin. So it's going to take a second and we're going to throw this 6 times the way that you do with the I-ching. So bear with us for that. And here we go. Let's do the first toss and let me know what you guys get.
Tails.
Heads.
All right. Solid line on bottom. I had heads. All right. Well, 5 more times.
Tails.
Tails.
Like I should flip it. Throwing just one coin doesn't feel right the way throwing 3 does. So I'm going to try flip. All right. Third.
Heads.
Tails.
Okay. Once again.
Tails.
Heads.
I got tails also. What's up in the chat, LC King and Logan and Juliana? Good to see you guys. All right, 2 more times, guys.
Heads.
Tails.
All right. Also had heads.
Oh. Heads.
Tails.
Okay, this is an interesting one because there are no changing lines. That means it's a solid thematic expression here.
Ooh.
And let me decode this hexagram real quick. My handy dandy chart. And we have got, wow, so weird. So weird. The reason this is weird is because this card is already on top of my deck due to the fact that I had a client session today. And what was interesting about him was that when we threw the coins for him, he got the same main hexagram as the client before him. But then his had changing lines into hexagram number 3, which is difficulty in the beginning. And it's this human form hatching out of a cosmic egg. And that's definitely a perfect and appropriate thing for a hero's journey, like Shang-Chi goes through. It's about growing pains, awkwardness. He's very awkward in the beginning, becoming stronger, confronting your doubts and fears, and the vulnerability of inexperience. So,
right, and even his friend, his lady friend,
platonic lady friend. That's an awkward thing as hell.
Yeah, she goes through quite the hero's journey, which we'll get to. But yeah, that's appropriate for both of them. Yeah.
And I'll just break down the elements of this real quick. It's the
but we got it twice. You say we got the same symbol twice, because twins is a theme in the movie.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, this was the top card on my deck from the last read. So the last hexagram, when I last used the I-ching, was this, and it just repeated itself. And like this kind of thing happens. And yeah, Logan's in the chat, actually, the guy who had did this session with me. So even weirder. It's like he brought it in. But
wow.
So yeah, you'll get a little more insight into this there, buddy. That was a great read we had today. So this is the lake or the abyss, the deep water above the arousal or the lightning, the thunder. So bioenergetically, it constitutes the supporting of the unconscious with our actual physical vitality. And in a sense, this is like your unconscious mind being programmed by the quality of your health and your vibrancy. And also the way that as we increase the flow of our chi in our field and in our body, we uncover more aspects of the unconscious, both for good and bad. Our potentials and our fears are all in there together. So it's it has a lot of meanings that are associated with difficulty, but it's also like infinite potential. It's like becoming adept or adult as well. It's not just saying that it has all this growing pains and awkwardness. It's also insinuating that at the end of the process, there will be an emergence of something greater. And so, yeah, that's perfect. Perfect for this movie. Absolutely.
And did they say
initiation, right?
Right. Yeah. And at the end credits, they say Shang-Chi will return.
Actually, what they say at the end of the credits, the 10 rings will return.
That's it. 10 rings will return.
Although it's quite evident that Shang-Chi will also return.
Nice.
And yeah, that's something that I have in my notes to definitely talk about. Here's the screenshot of that. Maybe I'll just start here. Why not? I'm sure this will carry us into some interesting stuff too. So here's the screenshot from at the end of the second post-credits scene. Marvel famously does a couple of scenes throughout the credits. And what do we have here? The 10 rings will return, but let's see if I can look at it here where you can see what's hidden behind that text.
Oh, yeah. Death card.
We're kind of starting at the end here because it's the very last thing you see, but that symbol is interesting, and I'm sure we'll talk about it as we go through. But yeah, Gabriel, what are we looking at there in the middle? What is that symbolic of in the middle of the 10 rings?
Yeah, that's the 5-petaled flower of Venus. And if anybody looks at the kiss of Venus, it is the pattern that Venus makes as it retrogrades 5 times through its cycle, and it is on the death card, the standard Rider-Waite Tarot death card number 13 is a scald knight in armor, a knight wearing armor, riding on a horse, and he's waving a banner, and the banner has that flower, 5-petal flower of Venus on the banner.
And the knight is a skeleton, just like that skull right in the middle there. So and that's not the same 10 rings logo that it looks like at the beginning. So she is, I know we're starting at the end here. This is interesting though, because the symbol morphs as she takes over. But I want to talk about, I guess, since the movie is titled Shang-Chi and the Legend of the 10 Rings, and here's the death card. I'll pull this.
Oh, nice.
Now so we can look at that.
There it is.
So there's the rider, skull, and that exact same symbol.
Oh man, you know what else, Chance? Put it back up, like pull it up so we can see the bottom. The horse is going over the body of the king. the king has fallen.
Mhm.
And that's very appropriate because by the end of the movie, the father figure is dead or gone. That's incredibly appropriate. That it's
Yep,
the
and
Death
he,
Star.
yeah, he's definitely a king. And the 10 Rings, for people that are not familiar with the film, is a secret society, an ancient secret society of ninja warrior soldiers led by the immortal. In the comics, he's called the Mandarin. His name, I believe, in the film is Winway. I'm pretty sure it's something like that.
You got
So that's Shang-Chi's father. He also has a sister, and we were looking at a picture of his sister who takes over the organization at the end of the film. But this idea of the 10 rings I think this is important actually to start with after all, because it's the, what are these secret societies that are influencing the world from time immemorial? Well, it's all based in this Kabbalistic system of 10. I like what you were saying in the weave last night, that what would life be like if you just renounced all numbers? Because a lot of the inverted aspect of the Luciferian or Promethean idea or Venusian idea, this is my personal opinion. I believe it began at the point where humanity lost the mystical correspondence of numbers and began looking at everything transactionally. And I've talked about this before, but to me that makes sense. And when it was just about the purely material and abstract mathematics instead of the spiritual component to number and the resonance of number. So we have this idea of the 10, which we've talked about all the time in previous weaves and stuff, the Pythagorean tetractys, for example, that pyramidal shape of 10 points that adds to 10, right? 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4. And yeah, I mean, if you haven't caught on yet, we're talking about with these secret societies that influence the world, and the theme of this 10 rings, it's Satanism. You say 10. So that's really important because this organization's shadow looms over the course of the whole film.
Yep. And, his name is Wen Wu. I think the 10 rings is like.
That's right. It's Wen Wu.
Yeah. And so that's a WW. And WW in standard reduced ordinal
33.
gematria is a 33 in septenary. Yes. And then it's a 55 in ordinal. So either way, it's a magic square of Saturn if it's 33, 3 by 3. And if it's 5 by 5, it's a magic square of Mars. But either way, it's like patriarchal dominance, the pinnacle of control. Either way.
Cool. Yeah. Either way, he's the master. He's the top notch.
Yep.
You just know and you know that from the get-go that he's top dog.
Yep.
As soon as he comes in, with, what is he in a helicopter? I think the first time we see him.
Oh, well, he's on horseback in the olden days when he.
Oh, right.
1,000 years in the past because
general.
he's immortal.
Right.
He's the immortal general, the king.
Yeah, the great
king.
Khan, they call him.
Right.
Yep. And he's even got a pentagonal breastplate in that opening scene. He's coming forward with the 5 on his chest, which is kind of interesting. I think that Wu is 5 in Chinese. One Mandarin, I don't know which, but I think Wu means 5 also.
And his name is Wei Wu.
Yeah,
you're right.
As in
Babe,
the opposite of Wu, the Wu Wei.
It's is it Win Wu or
Win Wu?
Right? Win Wu.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that goes back to my old thing about all the world wars. World War I, World War II. We're saying 5 by 5. We're hailing Mars every time we say WW. And
he
now
wears 5 rings on each arm, and
Yes.
arms are an anagram for Mars. Mars is the god of war. You use your arms to fight, right? And there's even this 5 verse 5 aspect of later in the movie when Shang-Chi acquires 5 of the rings and his father has 5 of the rings and they're fighting. And we haven't explained what the rings are very well, but I guess one of you guys want to take a stab at that.
Go for it, Gordy.
No, honestly, it's harnessed chi is what it is. It's an allegory for harnessing chi into a material thing, which I kind of think really relates to orgone myself personally. That's the vibe I get every single time that I've seen, like, because that's the theory, right? That orgone is a chi generator or accumulator, and we're all chi accumulators. And if we can harness that chi, because I think, a lot of us, like Mitch and Lindsay, have demonstrated that orgone does actually work as a chi or prana or whatever you want to call it. That's what this whole thing is about manipulating the energies around us and putting them into a material thing, and being able to manipulate that, I think, is being demonstrated. But that's just I don't feel like that was necessarily one of the things that they were putting in there. I'm saying this is what I'm reading.
Nice.
And this is one of the cool things about this, is that I love tearing stuff down with you guys, because I think we see things that the author's intention did not see, or maybe the original author of the original mythology meant that was missed when it was passed down and passed down and passed down. Because this is what a lot of us in these communities are doing, and we're kind of proving it.
Right.
We're proving the theories that these things are possible. And this is again the boots on the ground thing that we love to talk about, of making it a practical. However, all this stuff is, there's a practicality to it, and we can use it.
Right. And kind of tracking the alterations that they made from the original is important. It kind of tells you what direction we're being steered, what things are being, what missing pieces have been removed from the puzzle, and it shows intention when you can highlight that.
I want to make a point about the 10 rings here that just popped into my head. Well, first, here's a slight correction, not to call you out, Gabriel. It is a good call to think about the shape of his breastplate, but I went to look at it at the beginning of the movie. It's actually, hex. Yeah, it's a hex.
Damn.
So which I think is just as symbolic, maybe more appropriate, honestly, because that 5 and 6 combination is very important. That 5 to the 6.
Yep. So that's more 3x3, Gordy, the magical square of Saturn. That's more Saturnian.
And he is a Kronos figure, because the entire film, he's either having his children attacked or basically trying to kill them. And that's equivalent to devouring them in a metaphorical sense. But so let me see if I can find a picture that shows the rings better. Yeah, so this is maybe not the best picture, but here it is. The rings, the 10 rings, it said that he found them and they fell from the sky. So immediately I'm thinking Pierre Sabac's work, because Pierre Sabac is all in on the idea that the biggest aspect of the power differential that the ruling classes of history have always held behind the scenes was that the temples were hiding a ship or a craft or a vessel. Now, this vessel is symbolized by the concept of wheels, circles, rings, shields.
Yeah.
But specifically, this shape of the circle is very important. So here's an artifact of celestial origin, metaphorically symbolic of this type of a vessel that Sabac talks about, that is the source of the power of the secret society ruler who controls the world, who is also made immortal by this artifact. And that's something, when you do your homework on the weave last night, we were going hard on vampires for a good chunk of it, and actual psychic vampirism, energy vampirism, but the high level kind.
Yeah.
The creepiest thing that they talked about was in this Temple of Set was the posture of effortless power. Anyway, so this this guy does have that type of posture about him and does vampirize others in the sense of, like, you know, controlling them, intimidating them, getting everybody to follow his will. And he's got this immortality from the artifact. So all of that is very important to consider as we go forward, that there's this other story being told behind the story, whether it is intentional or a type of atavistic archetypal expression coming through our deep history and our memory as a species, that this symbolically, these rings are representative of the hidden hand. These rings that come off of his hands, they're around his wrists. And yeah, so all that about the rings is probably pretty important. I'm sure we'll have more to say about it. Take the screen share down.
Point out here, notice both of those colors when they first show him is black and blue. Like his colors of, the colors of Wu is black and blue, just to remind us for later.
Yeah, for sure. Indicating that the abyss, the lower, the moon pillar. Yeah, the moon pillar, the dark season, so to say, underworld.
Interesting that our hexagram, the colors are blue and red.
Yeah.
Elsie even said something about blue and red early in the chat there.
Nice.
Red and blue. Did they ever leave that out? So that's a great segue into another overarching theme that should be introduced before we continue forward into the, like, beat by beat plot analysis that we might be doing. The word Shang-Chi is very close to Zhang-Chi. It's basically an X instead of an SH, but phonetically almost the same. Zhang-Chi is the name for chess, Chinese chess, which is a variation of chess. And there's so much that we'll probably notice and that I've already got sort of in mind to bring up throughout the plot pertaining to this Chinese chess, which admittedly, I've never played it. So I only know so much about the rules, but the symbolism of Chinese chess, instead of white and black, like the Western version, is red and black, kind of like checkers. And this is super important throughout the film. And I'll dig up some screenshots, or we'll see some imagery that demonstrates this, but we'll just point it out that the heroes of this film wear red and the villains wear black. So throughout the movie, especially the second time I watched it, I noticed a very strong correlation to Chinese chess in the plot and in the imagery and in the symbolism, which I think is cool too, because we're talking about secret societies. We're talking about 5D chess, as we're told it is. They even, you know, this chess game actually does go into other dimensions, literally, in the story. So it could be metaphorical to 5D chess in that sense. And by the end of the film, Shang-Chi is actually wearing red and black. Red on top, black on bottom. So
nice.
Putting his light side, or the good guy side, on top, if we're looking at that as a hexagram, of his darkness, making his darkness subservient to the light and owning both sides of himself, which I think is pretty cool. So sure, there's a lot of other thoughts about the chess metaphor, but I'm going to stop rambling and let another person take over for a second while I dig up another hexagram that I think correlates to what I just said.
Nice.
Yeah, he's the middle pillar. He's the one between that encompasses both.
Yeah.
He's in the liminal space.
Right on. Yeah.
I noticed that black and it's the same thing with Star Wars, you know. Out your dad is the villain, and you have to, you know, purify yourself and go through the initiation, you know, thing. Go ahead.
Yeah. Returning balance. Yeah.
Right. You're returning balance. Exactly.
So I think the script, from what I dug up, the script that is on all the rings on their flag is called Seal script. And I think that's interesting because, seals are kind of a biblical concept. We had Solomon had seals. It almost goes without saying when you see these symbols encased in any shape, encased inside of a ring, inside of a triangle. It's all seals, but that's literally what the type of language that is on the 10 rings is called seal script. And one little Easter egg that I was able to borrow from somebody else was somebody pointed out that in his room he had Kung Fu Hustle poster on his wall.
Yeah. That and the Warriors from the 70s.
Right. And Kung Fu Hustle had a character in that film that had the rings, who fought with the rings.
That's right.
And this is where I wrote it down. The name of those rings are called Hunkar, like Hunkar. Hunkar is the name of those forearm battle rings that we're talking about. So that's kind of cool to know the name of those rings.
And this is just a point of interest for me, but since we brought I-ching into the equation, when you put the red over the black, you get 16, which is enthusiasm, representative of self-expression, inspiration of others, totality of success, confidence, all of these things. So if you put the black over the red, you get the turning point, number 24. So both of these combinations are pretty wild for expressing what the character Shang-Chi does throughout the film. But this one is particularly cool imagery.
Yeah. 16, there were 16 pieces on each side of the checkerboard. And that's kind of interesting. Nice.
Yeah, good point. Nice connection there.
So let's see, where did we go now? We find out he's the big baddie, and Shang-Chi's finding out his past. He has to admit his past to his friend to kind of initiate what happens with, or he gets sucked up into the fight, and so he has to admit to his friend, "Oh yeah, I'm the son of a Chinese gang lord, a magician Chinese gang lord who's eternal or something."
Yeah, so the film begins with him, Shang-Chi, going by the name of Shan, which is close to Shang, and they make a joke about that. And he's working as a valet with his friend Katie. Katie they introduced for this film. She does not exist in the comics, which kind of makes her a wild card of a character in terms of what to expect out of her maybe in future films and in this one. But yeah, they get on a bus together, and Shang-Chi is wearing this amulet, and he gets accosted by a dude with a machete for an arm and a group of assassins on the bus. And it's a really wild fight scene. Actually, that's the most entertaining part of the movie to me. All kinds of parkour and crazy ninja stuff in that fight scene, and that exposes him as being a trained warrior, really, with the skills to actually defeat a group of armed assassins in close quarters. And the question is posed by Katie to him, which sets the tone for the theme of the whole film. Who are you? And that's an answer that he can tell her his history, but he can't really answer that question. And in fact, he lies about the darker aspects of his history and that he's killed before. He definitely kills some people in this movie. I mean, it's in self-defense, but it's not a PG Marvel movie, which is why their relationship being so platonic and hands-off is pretty strange, actually. It feels awkward and out of place, to be honest.
Yeah,
in terms of a Hollywood movie. I'm not saying I'd rather have like a huge romantic subplot be in the forefront, but when it's just like halfway like that, it kind of, I don't know, it feels awkward for sure.
Well, I wondered how much did we really need, with these new translations, I always wonder how they're going to treat sidekicks. Because like Bucky in Captain America, Bucky was really a sidekick in Captain America for what, 50 years, 60 years, and until the MCU came about, and all of a sudden Bucky's an equal to Captain America almost.
Mhm.
Like he's already Winter Soldier, and like he's already. I mean, I guess he had to go through the transmutation, whatever of the Russian
Ultra. Yeah.
Russian MK Ultra stuff, right? Exactly. Which also this comes up too in this one. So first film, you're talking about the 10 rings. If you notice in the very first Iron Man movie, this was the organization that was running the terrorists who
Kidnapped Tony Stark.
Kidnapped Tony Stark and forced him into the initiation to create himself into Iron Man.
Yep.
So,
they were in the Iron Man 1. They were in Iron Man 2 as they aided Ivan Vanko in Iron Man 2, and then they were also the weapons dealers in Ant-Man. So the 10 Rings gang is kind of floating in the background throughout all the Marvel.
Right. It's the access power kind of thing, with Hydra being kind of the Nazi imagery, whereas the 10 Rings is kind of China, I don't know, or Japan maybe at the time, maybe when this started, because I mean,
they're like the Yakuza equivalent.
Right. There you go. Thank you. Kind of some sort of anagram for that.
Since we're back on the 10 rings concept again, Gabriel, do you want to give us a little bit more information about your thought process with this super graphic?
Yeah, man.
Oops.
So right away when I heard 10 rings, I thought back to our work on the Eternals, and I realized that it has powerful correspondence to the Sephiroth, the 10 spheres of the Sephiroth. But I think this ties in with L.C. King's work also, which this is not to say that they're different. Maybe they're all one and the same. Maybe the correspondence is the framework that connects them all. So I pulled up some images of these ancient calendars for tracking the lunar standstills. And it turns out this spiral shape here is that's a modern day. The one on the ground, the gray one, is a modern day representation of ancient systems that were used to track lunar standstills. The one up above, the spiral above on the browner tablet, that's actually from Chaco Canyon. And this is where the Chacoans had a calendar that was based on a 10-ring system, a 10-ring spiral. If you count the rings, there's 10 of them concentrically right there.
These are all Arizona like this. You can stumble on them over in Florence, which is right between here and Phoenix. There's just some of these just petroglyphs all over the place in the rocks in Arizona.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so they're essentially a calendar. And what will happen is the alignment of the moon at the grand solar minimum, or I'm sorry, the lunar standstill, the minimum lunar standstill will be marcated at the outermost ring. And at the maximum lunar standstill, it will slowly trace its way through the 8.6 years, almost 9 years. It'll track its way into this center ring slowly and work its way in and out, back and forth throughout the minimum and maximum lunar standstills. And so that's exactly what I was thinking about when I heard, that this title is called 9 Rings, or the 10 Rings, Legend of the 10 Rings. And I did some of the gematria, and sure enough, what word is that? Is that pendants at the top there, Chance?
Yeah, if I save this If you give me a second, I can actually make this bigger.
Okay.
Just need to save it to hard drive and then open it in a different way. So
it
is pendants. You were doing gematria on that word.
Okay. Yeah, I did a lot of gematria. Like I did gematria for Legend of 10 Rings, and I got a whole lot of 9s. I did 10 Rings alone, and I got a lot of 7s. And then Shang-Chi, I got a whole lot of 6s. But this is pendants. The word pendants actually has a 93 in 2 different ciphers. Which was really interesting to me because a lot of people know that's old Crowley had a big heart on for 93, and his disciples got a big thing for it. But it doesn't belong to them. It does not belong to them. It's its own significant number, regardless of those fools. So what I found interesting was when you take 93 and you multiply it by 2, you get 186. In 18.6, that is the standard differentiation between the lunar standstill minimum and the lunar standstill maximum. And there are 2 pendants in the film. So one pendant is a 93 and the other pendant is a 93, and they add up to this 18.6. And each pendant is like a marcation or a pillar, you could say, marking the differential between the 2 lunar standstills, minimum and the maximum.
Pend end is a lot like pent.
Yes.
Pent being the 5. And so if that's 5 by 5 again.
Yeah.
Brother and sister. Shang-Chi has a little sister, which we already kind of alluded to. They both have one of these pendants. So that also gives us another 10 correspondence. And it makes me think of the Yod He Vav He too. Ooh. The Yod being 10, the He being 5, and the Vav being 6, and the other He being 5. Yeah. Basically. So the Yod divides into 2 to Adam and Eve, and then they couple with 6 or sex to give us the 26, which is the number of the Supreme Being.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, those, and they try to pervert that too, of the swirl, the spiral. We see that all the time again. Yep. But if we're going here, before we get too far into the movie of the parts, when he meets his sister, he ends up in this underground fight club that his sister created, right, to get the pendants back together because his pendant was stolen. And I don't know if you guys noticed the Donnie Darko reference in that, but in order to escape because the forces are coming. There it is.
I'm on it, dude. As soon as I saw that thing, I knew it was important. They show it right at the beginning of the scene, and I was like, that's going to matter. And then it does. It's part of their escape. Yeah. Big, like for those listening and not looking at the screen, a big golden skull with bunny ears, kind of like Frank from Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
Metallic bunny face, Frank being more silver, but still, it's very similar. And if you hear that crazy sound, my cat is scratching at the door violently, desperate to get my attention. I love you, but I can't right now.
But Dad.
So this was a theme also in Transformers that I did with one-on-one. Big up, brother. Jumping out of a window. That old age-old adage your folks say, if your friend jumped out a window, would you jump out with him? If your friend jumped over a cliff, would you jump over with him? And that happens in Transformers. They like shoot out a window and they have to jump out to save their own lives. And here again, we have, let's just jump out the window to save ourselves. And I think that's just interesting because we've got a bit of a kamikaze programming going through the collective right now. Just wanted to point that out.
And that's part of the initiation as well, is nice. Jumping out and jumping out into the abyss, trusting that it's going to work out somehow,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Very much an initiation moment for Katie, similar to in the Matrix when Morpheus leads Neo to the edge of the building. Another, like, I kept thinking Matrix stuff in this film. Maybe it's because of the martial arts scenes, but yeah, I'll see if I can pull up a screenshot and maybe, you know, somehow appease this cat that's making all this noise, but see if I can pull up a screenshot of them on the edge of the building where they're fighting on bamboo scaffolding, which is sketchy AF. Actually, bamboo is a big part of this movie too, which is interesting as a thing. But I wanted to. We'll be jumping around a lot. I've got some things that maybe pull us a little earlier into the film, but it doesn't really matter.
Totally.
But while we're here, I wanted to see what Gabe thought about this skull in context with other skull stuff. That it's gold, that it's a rabbit, that it's a head that they use to, you know, break glass in case of emergency, and also initiates Katie kind of into like the real danger, the real near-death experience. I guess the first fight on the bus is pretty much a near-death experience too, but this one seems way more precarious in her. She does almost die in this as well, way closer to death than in the other scene.
Definitely. You, like Gordy called it, the jump, leaping into the abyss, leaping into the unknown. And what is the phrase that we tell people when they research something they've never heard before? They have to go down a rabbit hole. And this is definitely hailing to that, to the rabbit hole. And, you know, learning the full width and breadth and magnitude of what a dangerous world we're actually in, and that you just got to go, you got to deal with it. You got to face that devil. You got to stare him down, at each and every one of us in our own way. And it is skull and bones too.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, man.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Totally. It's totally the skull, the owning of the skull for power too, and recognizing, you know, that.
Yeah, she's the top of her organization, and she's got the skull.
Right. Exactly. You know, right after they jump out, one of the things that really stood out to me is he wouldn't kill any of his assassins. And his sister says, "Did America make you soft?" As if like you knew all this. This is what you were made for, because that's what you find out, that he was trained to be the world's greatest assassin, essentially.
Yep. And, you know, just another quick point is the skull in piracy. The skull is the symbol of, oh shit, hit the deck. Here it comes. We're about to get raided. And that's what's happening in that scene. The people are like starting to scatter, and you can feel the chaos percolating. And then they grab the symbol of the pirate, and it's just very interesting that they chose a skull as a symbol of escape, you know, to retreat.
Yeah, for sure. Right. It's, and all of the bamboo scaffolding, it's one of those interesting things, you know. The last time we watched it, my wife mentioned something about them using bamboo on the steel and glass buildings. And it makes me think that, this is it's going from the artificial world to the real world,
right?
Like the land of glass and steel to the organic, from the artificial to the organic. And one of the things that I kind of was thinking about when in the first fight that they show, you're introduced to in the Fight Club just before this happens, it's Wu, Doctor Strange's
Wong.
Or I'm sorry, Wong. Thank you, Wong, from Doctor Strange, fighting the
Abomination.
Abomination. Thank you, the Abomination, who in the comic was like an old school Hulk villain. He was like the anti-Hulk, and he's relegated to like just Fight Club fodder now, entertainment with Wong. Now,
Seems like Wong is like keeping an eye on him and helping him become less monstrous, at least in his behavior.
right, he's his handler, his keeper.
Yeah.
But he's the magician, the chi magician, because that's
He's the sorcerer supreme now.
The sorcerer,
in the
right?
MCU.
Exactly. Yeah, because isn't he given the
Mantle?
stone, the mantle? Right. He's now the sorcerer supreme.
Yeah,
So yeah,
because
he's got to keep
Doctor
the
Strange
order.
blipped.
Right.
And let's go back to the blip thing because that's important too, and I have some thoughts about that.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But let me find it. Since we're talking about this fight scene where they're in the fight club fighting pit. Let me find it. Thought it was kind of interesting, this imagery of, they're in an underground, illegal, dark web fight club, but they're still mostly all masked up.
They're still obedient.
They're still obedient. I mean,
that's really mixed messages. That's like, what in the fuck?
Yeah, you can still be a rebel and cool and edgy, even though you are afraid of cooties enough to wear the face diaper.
Right.
And that actually comes up again at the very end of the movie. Oh wait, I'll scrub to it in a second. But at the very end of the movie, I just pulled up the actual stream so I could scrub around in it. That seems like the easiest thing.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good idea.
If you see, here we go. So at the very end of the movie, after the sister, I think it's Xiao Ling, something like that is her name. I'm sorry for maybe not being great.
Sister
Zhang Li. Oh no, that's the mama. I forget her name. I wrote it down somewhere.
I get it.
Thank you. I meant to do that, but I prepared in a lot of other ways.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like kind of more classic Disney empower the princess thing. Not that women can't be powerful, but it also doesn't historically go well when you put women in the military. And when her father was in charge of the 10 Rings, it was all men. Women weren't allowed to train. She wasn't allowed to train. She had to teach herself to fight by watching them secretly. But she's got her army of female ninjas now. She's back there on the throne. But most of them, it's just a handful that aren't. And I don't know why a few aren't. But they're all wearing the mask. And it's not like a ninja mask. These are like cooties masks.
Cooties masks. Yeah.
A few of them have bandanas that make them look kind of more like they're trying to be bandits or whatever. But those are the medical masks. They may be custom in black, but they're putting that in the movie, even for the fucking villains. They're setting her up to be like the next villain. This is her evil army, and
that is cognitive. Okay, cognitive dissonance at its worst. That's crazy. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that forward, Chance. And you know what I'm seeing right now? I just got goosebumps big time. I'm kind of tripping. So we've got on the walls. There's the tiger, the foo dog tiger on the left, and the dragon on the right, painted on the walls. Mm-hmm. That's the Shaolin Temple. That's the gates to the Shaolin Temple. Anytime a Shaolin monk would go on a pilgrimage, they had to come through a sacred corridor to leave the temple. And at the end of the corridor was
the dragon court. This is what they're entering.
Yes. There's a perpetually burning vessel that is kept hot at all times. And in order to leave out of this sacred corridor for their pilgrimage, they needed to put their forearms on this burning vessel, and it would singe. They would be branded with the mark of the tiger, essentially, and the dragon on the other one. And they had to pick up the urn, the burning urn, and then rotate it and walk out the door and set it back down. And this meant that every Shaolin monk who would go on a pilgrimage, the marcations on their arms would rotate. So the next guy would have the dragon on the other and the tiger on the opposite one.
Oh, interesting.
And so there was a kind of a weird tracing of the lineage of who's left the temple and who's not.
I thought you were going to bring up the whole thing of like having the lions in the courtyard before you cross the moat.
Yes, that always at the gates, right? Lions are always guarding the gates
to sense your fear. And if you maybe are like, there may be some other, you brought this up before, that it has something to do with possibly testing the bloodline of the individual trying to enter the court.
Oh yeah, man.
And
we're talking the Jubilee Palace in Ethiopia.
Yeah, maybe if you want to give a synopsis of that, because when we get into talking about Talo, the mystical city in the other dimension, I think it applies because they are the dragon lineage. You know, they're powered by the dragon, and it's a secret society as well, literally. And so they've got those foo dog lion canines guarding their village as well. A lot of, and I think that this, even when applied to like the European Occidental versions of this symbolism and the royal families that rep with the lion crest, that it's all symbolism coming from the East.
Yeah, man.
Originally.
Yep. Yes, I'll try to be quick. I'll try to be real quick, but the Jubilee Palace it has been guarded by lions for many generations. And the lions are, their pheromonal presence dominates the courtyard. And anybody who wanted to come into the presence of the king, and this is not just Selassie, this is the whole lineage of kings before and even after. Any person who is seeking the counsel or the presence of the king, they have to go through the courtyard where the lions rule, and they eat there. And so any human who goes through this chamber, they will have either one of two responses. They will either be intimidated and diminished in their posture to the point that they can't even present themselves in front of the king. They'll be intimidated. Or theoretically, if you're of a more alpha bloodline, conceivably, we're talking about the Rh negatives. If you're a certain other blood type, you're not going to be intimidated by no fucking lions. And you're going to walk up in front of the king and you're going to stand tall and proud and present yourself. In fact, you might even be encouraged. You might even be stimulated. You might be vasodilated by the fact that you just walked through a very dangerous situation. And the king knows to read those signs and to know what you're made of, what kind of man you're made of. And so all of this hails back to Daniel in the lion's den. And Daniel was tested by being put in the lion's den for 7 days. And the king came to check on Daniel, and he was expecting the lions to be like, give me some more. But it turns out Daniel was kicking it. He was chilling with the lions. It was all good. And this is indicating that there are certain bloodlines that don't have any problem with that intimidation factor.
Super good. Okay, so to go back to that point about the cognitive dissonance regarding cooties and masks, we try to pay attention to the background symbolism in these films. Sometimes catch stuff. I mean, it's hard to do because you got to pause and really zoom in, right? But there was one particular scene when he's going up to Katie's apartment early in the film, and there's a couple of times when it's referenced actually, but so one of the scenes with him and Katie in San Francisco early on, they're out with some friends at a bar, and one of their friends says, "We have to accept the reality." What does she say? I have the direct quote. Let me look at this direct quote, and then I'll bring the picture back. "We're now living in a world where half the population can just disappear." And if you've listened to Crow 777 over the last couple of years, they've done really extensive work about the Avengers Endgame movie and about how obvious this idea of the blip. So to summarize that, in the last Avengers movies, the villain takes out half of the population of the universe with a snap of his fingers, and they're calling it the blip, which I'm sure there's some kind of reason why it's called the blip too, and we could maybe figure that out. But they're obviously referring to the fact that when this all started, they're giving us the fear program that half the population could die from this pandemic thing. So
Right.
here's a scene where he's going into her apartment. They just show this doorway for half a second. And as you can see, there's this graffiti on the walls here. Post blip anxiety, you're not alone. National Blip Support Hotline. You know, they're really hammering it home that this is a metaphor for the trauma of mass die-off, if you will.
Yeah.
And there's this weird stuff here, like blip sync, whatever that is.
It's a
I guess it
dating.
has something to do with like helping somebody.
I think it's a dating app for people who have been lost someone in the blip.
I was thinking, yeah, because you come back and you know, I guess that's part of the trauma is that like your partner may have moved on, they may be with someone else, all kinds of cool stuff like that, fun times. But when I saw this blip sync thing, what jumped into my mind was like, what if it's where you go and they insert you into all the photos of your family and friends as if you were really there?
Oh, that's pretty wild. That's a wild read.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not what it means. It's probably a dating app, but
you know,
I just wanted to make sure we caught this blip stuff so that because it's littered throughout all the Phase 4 post Avengers Marvel films and TV shows. I assume I've only seen a fraction of them. Probably only these two in the third Spider-Man film.
Hey, look at, and this is interesting. The addresses are 817 and 819.
I thought about that, and I couldn't really figure out what may be significant about that.
Yeah,
well, the one it's not showing is 186 or 816.
Wouldn't that be on the other side of the street? Because you got to do odds and evens.
Oh, interesting read. Okay, yeah. But it kind of has its own blip intrinsic to it. Like if 50% of the population is gone, then you're missing that even number. That 816 is pulled out of the, you know.
We're supposed to be looking for the one that they're not showing.
It's not, yeah. And just a quick note, I'm seeing, you know,
the hidden six.
Yeah. And you got one girl's doing the, you know, the two fingers on the eye, standard Hollywood symbolism. And you got the one dude down below, they're doing the two fingers. And just a quick note is, you know, that's Typhon. It means peace. We all know it means peace. And that's what they're probably mean by it. But throughout this movie, I'm seeing little tiny hints and indications of some of that Typhonian, maybe some H.P. Lovecraftian signs and symbols, because that comes up big time in the culmination. The main monster at the end is going to be some H.P. Lovecraft shit for sure. I'll just make this point. Their very first time they go to karaoke and they're singing together, they're singing Aladdin's song, A Whole New World.
Oh yeah.
And
we got into Aladdin a little bit in the weave.
Yes, and thank you, Juan. That was so awesome. I now have the correspondence of Aladdin and Arabian Nights being a favorite subject of H.P. Lovecraft. And here now we can see a lot of signs and symbols coming through with perfect clarity. But yeah, they were singing A Whole New World in the karaoke scene, which is kind of appropriate because of the blip, but it's also definitely H.P. Lovecraft, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. And that culminates it big time at the end scene. So I'll just put that forward. We got some Typhonian signals going.
Okay, so here's another thing that's earlier in the film to get into. But when Shang-Chi is a child, they show this flashback scene, a few different flashback scenes of him as a kid. And instead of his characteristic red, he's wearing green as a child in most of the scenes until the death of his mother, symbolized in white for purity. Multiple scenes she wears white because she's the pure one. You know, the white queen and the black king, because the father always wears black. But she's telling him about his heritage in this scene. And she's telling him about this dragon, this red dragon that she's handed him. Looks like origami, maybe. And she says to him, when you have the heart of our dragon, you can do some pretty amazing things. And so I wanted to bring forward the possibility that there are aspects of the symbolism in this movie encoding the idea of possessing entities as bestowed upon secret society members through different rituals and thought form egregores that are created or summoned in particular specific ceremonial fashion. And getting back to the idea of the dragon bloodline too. I mean, she's telling him that his heritage is basically like, you know, inheriting the ancestral powers of the dragon bloodline. And that symbolism is replete throughout the, you know, the ophiolatry cult.
Nice.
Big time, big time. So that's just something to put forward. He's wearing green, which represents the heart and courage. And she's wearing white, representing purity. And there's a couple of other parts that maybe we'll just touch on them when we get there. Because I remember a few, but I don't know if I remember all the examples. I noticed that maybe suggesting this possession concept, but I have a couple in mind, and maybe I'll hit on them as we get to that point in the plot. But I just wanted to back it up to this flashback and then put that forward and see what you guys think about it before we move into some more of the next things in the plot.
Okay, so something that I see is really super significant, just that image right there that you had where he's got a paper dragon, the red paper dragon that his mother is intimate and genuine from his mother. It's
paper. And he gets a postcard with his sister's address on it with the dragon on it, also paper.
You got it, man. And here it is. In this, you got to be real savvy on some of that Crow 777 work on the birth certificate, because it turns out the first birth certificate, the original, the more local state birth certificate is lowercase print. That's the real deal. That's where you have standing. Your feet are under you with the lowercase print. And then later on, they go through this process and you get this further out jurisdiction, this removed jurisdiction. In the second birth certificate is uppercase capitalized print, and that's the false. That's where the fraud is put in place. And so, sure enough, he thinks he's getting a symbol from his sister when he gets that second postcard, but it turns out his dad did that, and it was all a setup. And that's that federal jurisdiction coming in to take your feet out from under you. Now you got to go jump out the fucking window.
Wow.
So yeah, that's very significant. And I think we also, it's a red dragon. We got some placenta magic going on, but that's for another day.
I don't know if we want to go back to where they first met, because this is before Shang-Chi is born. We get that scene where he meets his mother in what's the city, Konao or
Ta Lo.
Ta Lo, thank you. So he's hunting for the lost city. The city, and this comes up again and again also in Black Panther and in this one of Ta Lo, of the whole city states being in liminal space. Like they're the hidden whole civilizations.
The private jurisdiction.
Right. Like maybe an Atlantean.
This is what she looks like when Wu meets her.
Right. She's like she's like a forest creature. Like
very yokai.
Spirit.
I know that's a Japanese concept though.
And when we first meet, I don't remember what's the mother's name. I had it just a second ago. So we first meet his mother. She's the white. I think her name's just Lee. But she's the one you see first, like controlling the wind with her chi. Like you see, and they show with the wind and the leaves of her energy field, it's a torsion where they show her manipulating that with her chi, which is being showed to us over and over again. Like I'm being reminded over and over again to focus on your chi, because these are just books that, my father-in-law left for my wife, just this is probably maybe some of this stuff was before we had even met, that he had been stockpiling all these mystic books and stuff that knowing that they would come handy somehow.
Yeah, man.
And here they are. I've got, all these
they
things
were even
are related mystic books. And some of these I can't even, I don't even want to show some of them, but this, Recovering Ancient Magic.
Yeah. And they were kept in boxes for years, right?
Yep.
Just like in the movie.
We didn't know what, right? This is crazy. Yeah. Speaking of Orgone, Wilhelm Reich.
Yeah.
The mystics of the old Kahuna, the mystics of old Hawaii. This is we're being reminded over and over again that this stuff is real. And yeah, so when she has, and in this fight, they show her taking control of the rings. He uses the rings against her. They're blue. She is able to change the rings and control them, and they're turned into gold.
Right.
When
he encounters her in the green forest, she's wearing green.
Yes.
This is very much a liminal space too, because the heart chakra being green, it is the line between the upper and lower, the masculine and feminine, the chalice and the blade, the blue and the gold. Right above the heart chakra is the blue. Right below the heart chakra is the gold.
The gold, right.
So he meets her wearing white because by discovering or accessing the heart, as in they fall in love and all that, he is purified temporarily until her death by this, and he is shown in white while they are a couple before her death many times. So this is like his moment of oscillating towards the light side temporarily because he found and became centered in the heart, which is why this all happens in the green, the forest between dimensions, liminal space, the heart itself, liminal space. Yeah. This is where he can make the transfer between the light and the dark before he, goes back over.
Yes. It's also the clean hands doctrine of the maxims of equity. In order to enter into equity, one must have clean hands. In order to go into your dojo, you must wear the white gi. And it's very interesting, just like you said, he's going into her temple. So he has to practice that spiritual cleanliness. And when she leaves, she has to wear white as she's coming into his realm. That's very powerful symbolism. I love it.
Very good. And I wish we could show actual clips because this is part of the neat aspect of the film, this particular scene and a few others like it, where you really get the sense of the fluidity and the flow, the Tai Chi like aspect of the choreography of these fights, where almost like, your game, Gabriel, this fight becomes a dance as much as it is a competition, which is pretty cool, actually.
And they lean hard into that dance thing they almost go into a tango together, because there's those slow motion shots where they're looking into each other's eyes as they pass each other, nice and slow, and they're really leaning into that. This is a dance between good and evil kind of thing.
Right.
And they mirror that effect at the point where Shang-Chi finds his true self within and is able to overcome his father in combat. They actually mirror and imitate the movements of this fight between his mother and father, which of course he wasn't present for because he wasn't born yet. But I think, is demonstrating that the real hero basically isn't fighting to crush their opponent or to they aren't working strictly from a mind angle, if that makes sense. It is very much about the flow of being in alignment with life force energy and nature and knowing your heart, being in this green zone that allows you to win, basically, because you become you become one with life force, energy, and spirit. So you become aligned with that which is eternal and unconquerable in the first place. And that's why when he wins the fight at near the end with his father, I think we see a very similar dance aspect, because he's in flow. He's no longer confused. He's no longer trying to force things. He's no longer letting his doubts and his fears and his mind dictate the decisions he makes. And when he gets into other fights, he's got a lot of flow to it as well. But in particular, where it becomes more of a dance is like the part where he's able to really manipulate the chi, and he's doing like airbending, basically. Pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of interesting, because we're entering into the air age with Aquarius, and there ultimately it is the air element that comes to I don't know, win the day ultimately in the film. So yeah, it's very appropriate.
And back into the color symbolism a little bit, that's always relevant. Mm-hmm. When he's being trained to be an assassin by his father, he's portrayed in black. When he has, I'll have to scrub off of the screen share, but when he has this moment of triumph and like his training is complete and he's become inconquerable, it's the only scene that he's shown in yellow, gold. So his will and his dominance is asserted. His strength in that solar plexus aspect he's activated. He's fully reached the top of the physical chakras at that point. Hasn't made it to heart, but he's got, an indomitable will now. And he fights like 50 ninjas as a 14-year-old.
As you do.
Yeah.
Sean probably has a story like that.
Who does?
SB Alger.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he's got stories for everything.
Oh yeah, that reminds me of this time I was in India one time. These 15 monkeys with swords coming at me. Surprising, I bet. I was trying to go through my notes and see if we're getting ahead or getting behind. One of the things that I noticed when she's talking to the sister, when Katie and Xialing are talking, in the background of I just remembered this, in the background of Xialing's office, right? They show them they're talking. She's telling her story. God, these fucking glasses drive me crazy when I'm looking at myself on here. When the tile or the little designs on her wall in her office are torsions. It's a torsion. It's like two different rings together, almost like Gabriel's Pisces thing with the circles.
Nice.
It's a very much that whole, like, I see torsions throughout this whole thing. One of the other things is when they're first meeting the father, right? And they're at that dinner, and he asks her name, and she's like, "Oh, it's Katie." And he's like, "No, what's your real name?" Names are sacred, and he makes a point. Names are sacred; they mean things.
Yes,
you should get to know yours.
Yep,
and it's very important.
Very important. Yeah. One other thought was I wanted to say before we get too far away from the beginning of the movie, in the fight scene on the bus, where we realize that he's actually got kung fu skills, because his friend Katie, originally she saved him from getting in a fight by jumping in and singing Hotel California to embarrass the bad guys.
That's a song about fucking demonic possession if there ever was one.
Right. Yes. And they work as valet drivers at a hotel in California.
That's a good point.
It's incredibly meta. So
I didn't even think of that. That's great.
Yeah. So in the moment that the fight scene commences and he starts whooping people's ass, she is shocked. She's in shock. And what she says is, holy shit. And she's like just awestruck. But she's like, I didn't need to save this guy at all. He let me save him. Right. And this comes up later. She only says the words holy shit at one other part in the movie. And it's incredibly transcendent. The next time she says holy shit is a beautiful thing. And this is why I love fucking Kung Fu movies, because they can work some high grade alchemy. And if you know what you're looking at, like the goosebumps stick with you for days. But right there, she says, holy shit. And she says that line towards the end, and we'll get there. I'll save it for later. But it's very amazing. And also, while we're in this part of the movie as well, they are joined by at the hip at the beginning of the film, where she's driving when she takes the car on a joyride, and she's speeding around town, and then they're in the bus and they're together inside another vehicle, and she ends up doing the driving. This is the twins. They are representing the twins, Gemini, in the beginning, and they're always inside. The next sign is Cancer. They're inside of a chariot, a vehicle, a vessel. They're sharing a vessel, right? And she's always doing the driving, and he's always doing the emotional work. So it's kind of like she's the physical self, and he's kind of like that emotional self. They're kind of switching roles gender-wise, by standard psychological constructs.
You could say that. Yeah, she's not super emotionally expressive in the film, only
right
in the incredulity about who he is. But the rest of the film, she's like really even keel.
Nice.
And he's the one that's having ups and downs.
Yep. And so the bus fight scene, they are moving from Gemini into Cancer. And in the bus fight scene, Razor Arm comes out and he slices the bus in half.
Yeah. Razor Fist. The guy's name is Razor Fist.
Razor Fist, yes. And so that's Cancer. That's the cutting. That's the separation. And they're breaking out of that vessel. The chariot is cut in half. And then from there they move forward through the zodiac very slowly. But I just find it very interesting that we have a lot of tarot correspondence going on right there in that beginning, as he pops up right in the sign of Cancer as they're riding on the chariot.
And the hero at that point too, in that Cancer moment, he's, there's a lot of, to me, clear allegory of him being the son of the sun.
Yes.
That his mother and father represent the summer sun and the winter sun, right? Like the Kronos and Rhea, god and goddess of fortresses. They both have fortresses that they're from, or they operate from. His base of operations for the 10 rings and her village of Talo. So he's the son of the sun, the SUN, the sun god, basically. He's the hero messiah character. And in this Cancerian themed scene in the chariot, he's like really expressing the height of his powers. There are other scenes where a lot of the fight scenes following this, he stumbles, he fails, he does not, going further through the zodiac post Cancer, you're no longer the summer sun. You're no longer, the sun's no longer at the height of its strength.
Yep.
So this is, I think, an apt metaphor, because in this fight scene, he's flawless. He's absolutely flawless.
Except he gets separated from his birthright.
Oh yeah. Well, that could be like the fall, at the end.
Right. He loses that birthright. He loses the pendant. And I see that very much symbolic of the placenta. But
that pendant is green.
Oh man.
Leo, heart, core.
Yep.
Slick, have you watched The Last Middle Path with Lindsay and Phoenix Aurelius?
You could say actually this scene is him in Leo, actually, because he's so fierce and ferocious, and it's all about that green pendant.
Nice.
And following that is, I wonder how we would move into the Virgo, because the next scene is him meeting his sister.
Yes. Yeah.
Who's the Virgo character.
Yeah.
And she's like, she's running a business that's very Virgo, right. Honestly.
Oh, right. And she doesn't speak. She hasn't spoke up until the end of the fight scene.
Hold that thought. Let's
yeah.
talk about that, but let Gordy get in real quick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I was just gonna mention to both of you guys, if you haven't caught the last Middle Path with Lindsay Sharman interviewing Phoenix Aurelius.
Yeah.
All the stuff that we've been talking about with the placenta and eating placenta and craziness, guys, get on that and check it out.
I'm on it. I already wrote it down. And just for anybody who's listening, we're not talking about dehydrate it and put it into capsule pills. We're talking about eat that shit. Do not send it off to some factory so they can take out the spirit of it. And
being very careful about the intention of this kind of stuff.
Right. Okay. Back
anyway,
on track.
So going back, sorry. But this, before we go too far, that I guess, should we move on with after the he's kind of realized and admitted who he is?
Oh, wait, one quick
point. There's a really important point in this fight scene.
I
definitely noticed. So when he goes to the illegal underground murder pit.
Okay, thank you.
They're in Thailand, right? Or Taiwan. Sorry, it's in Taiwan, I believe. Is where this takes place. It's like the Las Vegas of Taiwan. Can't remember the name of the city, but they do say it. So he gets contracted unwittingly to fight in this giant battle, and ends up his opponent is his sister, who owns the whole thing, and she seems to have arranged it so that she could kick his ass. And Gabriel, you made a really good point. She doesn't speak in this fight at all until a certain point, but before she speaks, let me pull up the other screenshot here. Before she speaks, there's a particular initiatory ritual that has to happen. She kicks him in the nuts hard. This one's all you, dude. You take it away on this one.
So theoretically, let's say that when they were on the fight scene on the bus, that was Cancer. That has to do with render unto Caesar. What is Caesar's? He's had his placenta, his birthright. He's come out of the vessel. It's been removed from him. And now look, he's naked and exposed to the world. Okay. So, and one other quick point.
They make him take his shirt off. He didn't really want to.
Yep. He's a little uncomfortable about that. And he's getting mocked by his buddy. And one more quick note. I know we go back and forth a lot here, but when the bus gets stopped at the bottom of the hill in San Francisco, at the end of that fight scene and all the adrenaline dump is over and you can finally take a breath, they show ever so quickly, they show a flash to a CVS sign on the other side of the street at that moment of relief when you're like, oh, everything's okay. You get a flash in the corner of your eye, CVS, go get your medicine, make sure everything's okay.
I've got to find that moment, so I'm going to look for it.
Okay, yeah, it's incredibly quick. It's just a second long, but the camera is behind the bus and the dump truck, and here we have the placenta is being thrown into the trash. It's discarded, and the medical component. You throw the medical component on there, and everybody's breathing a sigh of relief. It's really interesting. You're also at the bottom of a hill, which is coming out of Cancer. Is that descent? Is the initiation into the descent. And so then we roll into him being naked in the next scene and fighting against Virgo, his sister, who has not spoken. She's abstinent. There it is, CVS. You see it?
Yeah, and Sesta KV, CVS.
Nice.
What's on
and
the
they show
truck?
there's a couple other parts of the scene where you can kind of see it in the background. So this may not be the best screenshot of it, but you make a really strong point right there.
Yeah, man. So the medical industrial complex is going to save your ass, is what they're telling you. It also has the placenta going in the trash and going onto the medical. And then look on the horizon. What do you have? You have
ships.
You have Alcatraz. That's the prison.
Oh, that is
ships. It's the ships for your citizenship, and now you're in Alcatraz. There's your prison. There's so much in this one little image. And guess what's on the audio? It's a foghorn. And seagulls. Language of the birds.
Damn, dude.
Yeah.
This is why why you're on the team.
That's crazy. Yeah, and at the end of this, she says to the guy in the sanitation truck, who I mean, I don't know if any of you guys' garbage trucks look like this, but ours don't. They don't look like this color green. This is the color of Scrubs, and it says sanitation, keeping our city clean.
And there's a hexagonal a hexagonal type of logo to it as well.
Right, exactly. And she says to the other driver at the end of this, because she ends up her bus on top of the garbage truck. She says, "We make a good team."
That's a trip and a half, man. That's a trip and a half. Yeah, it's so amazing how much information can be fit into just a couple seconds. Just a couple seconds. It's absolutely nuts.
Doesn't it blow you away? Like,
yeah.
They can't this much detail. Are they really paying that much detail to this, or are they just letting this flow, showing us all this stuff? Or is it just us that's seeing it? Who knows? I think all three of those things are true.
I think it's all three.
I gotta say, I did not even I had not thought about the Alcatraz until Chance pulled it up. I had thought about the ship, I thought about the CVS and the dump truck and the placenta, but just now is when I saw Alcatraz.
I remember seeing. I'm so glad this came up, because on that scene in the original Hulk, they show him tearing up San Francisco also, and he's in that same famous road that's all twisty and curvy. Yeah. You can see him, hulking out, and they show Alcatraz in the background. I remember making note of that, and now I'm going to have to go back to the original Hulk.
Yep. And one more quick point. I'm so glad we're getting into details here. So sanitation, the goddess of sanitation is Panacea. Panacea is the goddess of sanitation, and we've already gone over this, Chance. You know that's that's the tarot card number 14 that corresponds with temperance.
Also Hygeia.
Yes, and temperance is your 14 is your 14th Amendment citizenship. Gave you that citizenship after the Civil War. After all that battle, you were supposed to feel like you got a bargain. Like everything's going to be okay. We've got citizenship. Just everybody remain calm. Temperance. It's a trip and a half, man. Okay. So I'm so glad we went back to that, Chance. Thanks for pulling up that image.
Cool.
Man, cool. I missed all of that CVS and ships in the background. So
and the color of Scrubs.
Here's another thing that
dude.
Dylan, Lee, if our buddy Lee, who we probably should bring into the chat at some time, because this cat lives in DC. Our friend Lee and Dylan's films. If you're not watching his Instagram, also he does some stuff he lives in DC, and if we need to see something, that dude will get on it. He pointed out that this place is in Macau, and this is what triggered it with me. Macau is
Macau.
So this is a city in China, right? But it's run by the Portuguese state. It's a sovereign state. It used to be a Portuguese, kind of like Hong Kong was with the British, but it was because Hong Kong's like one of those liminal space things, right? Like DC is a liminal space. Macau is a liminal state, like a sovereign state within the country. And it's one of those little harbor cities too, like kind of where the laws are sketchy.
It's hard to make out the focus level of this, but his address is 1045 Euclid Avenue. That's an interesting one. I don't know what to make of that. But the address in Macau is 1888.
Whoa.
I cannot
Wow.
read the actual name of the address.
So, well,
Hard to tell.
1 point is 1 + 4 + 5 = 10. So there's your 10 rings.
Yeah,
And,
there's another 10.
Yep. Macau.
888.
That Macau is going to be. It's going to occur to me like way after the show. I'll like put it in the comments tomorrow. But that's that's got a Portuguese meaning. Like monkey is a macaco. Is monkey. Macaw. Oh, isn't it a bird? It's a macaw. The macaw.
Macaw.
I think we
parrot?
might have more language of the birds going on there with the macaw.
Oh.
They have
Yeah.
ear shadowing screams. A macaw can just pierce your eardrum if you're too close. It's like kind of like the siren call. You know, it can make you insane. It's just agonizing to hear. Okay.
So I just did a quick Google search. Why is it called macaw? Or
Yeah.
Macau.
Yeah.
And the Google says the name Macau is derived from the Chinese Ama Gao, or Bay of Ama, for Ah Ma, the patron goddess of sailors. Interesting.
Oh. Yeah, huh.
So yeah, there's Ma. Ma's coming into the picture.
Okay. It's almost like the California Sea, the ocean, the Bay of California, maybe. So after the baby is born, coming out of the placenta, you've thrown the placenta in the trash. You've trashed the vessels. All those cars are smashed. We've got the dump truck and the CVS and the fucking Alcatraz. Man, that is so golden. So now he's naked, and he's in the arena. He's in the public. He's got his 14th Amendment citizenship. He's nice and vulnerable and ready to go and be tested, by the masses, by the psychotic masses, who are wearing masks, by the way, which person means mask in Etruscan. Next comes the castration ritual, the circumcision. And that's what is the next step in his struggles through the battle, the fight for his life. And it's his sister, somebody he loved, a loved one, is giving him that cheap shot.
And won't speak to him until after it's been done. The deed has to be done first before he can receive the next level of family secrets. You know, he's got to trade his family jewels for the family info.
Yes. Yeah.
And it is about family jewels in this moment because he's lost his jewel. And she's got the other jewel, and she's in danger of losing it.
Yeah, and that's kind of a running theme. I've got quite a few friends who like have these, we'll just say, conniving sisters who fuck with the inheritance. That seems to be. I hear about that a lot. Just saying, it's kind of crazy that there seems to be some kind of theme with that in life in general. Because he's the eldest. That he should get the inheritance. Biblical law around inheritance, the eldest gets a double portion, and then the rest is divided amongst the youngers. But so there's a bit of an inversion going on here.
So the reason why she's so pissed at him to go back is that when he was young, when he was a 14-year-old and she was younger still, he had been trained as an assassin, and he was sent on his first mission, and he did not return. He told her he'd be back in 3 days. Son of the sun, gone for 3 days, right? But he does not resurrect into her life. He goes and runs away, and doesn't show up again until this point. So she's feeling all the trauma of that, having been abandoned by the only person that was caring in her life. And he's trying to reason with her until he tells her the father is coming for her amulet that you see right here. And she cheap shots him again. She kicks him in the face and KOs him in one shot. So that moves us forward to the point where they're up in her office after that. And the father does indeed show up with this whole army. And we already discussed what follows that. We are jumping around a little bit, but that was the point where they are attempting to escape. She takes the escape. She has a panic room, basically. She has an escape elevator that, the doors are a hidden secret passage, and she leaves them behind. And she does heroically come back, though she just wanted him to feel what it was like to be abandoned. She does come back. She saves the life of Katie, who almost dies from a fall off of the bamboo scaffolding. And there's a big fight scene with a lot of goons, and Shang-Chi fights the main ninja. I should find
it's Death Dealer.
Oh, is he like a character from the comics?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll find a screen grab of that character, because we are talking about the mask a lot, and his mask is one of the more prominent ones in the film, so I find it good.
Oh, and in that scene where he's fighting the Death Dealer, in the background there's like a big banner from across the city. It's a large screen, is flashing cartoon images of a dog, which is interesting to me because it kind of indicates the hunter, indicates that, the hunt is on, so to say, but it's also infantilized. It's a cartoon for kids. While he's fighting for his life, there's like this, there's this juvenile imagery of a dog in the background. In this Death Dealer that he's fighting, that's his father's dog of war, the hunting dog that is sent out to do to scout ahead and do the dirty work.
Also, he was the one that dogged Shang-Chi for his whole training in childhood. He was the one that would, beat him into shape and did the harsh training for him to become so like unkillable.
Right. So the imagery in the background is definitely kind of hailing to early childhood trauma, essentially. He didn't have cute dogs and cartoons in his life. He had to fight the fucking Death Dealer. Right. Yep. And he still can't. He couldn't finish the job back then. And when he gets the better of the Death Dealer, he's unable to see the job through.
He tries to, but the father actually stops him, stays his hand.
Right.
And then the father admits that he didn't give any orders about holding back to his men. They get captured by his father at this point because he's got the 10 rings and he's powerful. And his father says, "I told my men they would not be able to kill you even if they tried." So it implies that he gave them free reign to get the pendants by any means necessary, up to and including killing his children. But he just didn't expect that they would be able to do that. So maybe that's part of why he was okay with not specifying the orders. I don't know, but there was definitely attempted murder on both of them many times. They were the bad guys weren't really holding back.
Right. And one thing that's interesting is it's a curry knife. The knife that he is hesitating, that he's holding in his hand in that moment, is a curry knife. It's a throwing dagger. It can also be attached to a chain whip. But that's exactly the same weapon that his dad handed him 10 years before when he sent him out on an assassination mission that he could not complete. It's the weapon is identical. It's the same. Yep, it's the same trigger item, so to say.
Yeah, it's very important to like MK Ultra conditioning, which is a lot like what he went through.
Yep.
He went through a lot of trauma-based conditioning.
You got it.
And he's still in the green.
Oh, yeah.
Well.
Actually, no, he's got a green underneath, but this jacket, it's kind of the color grading, but this jacket is really blue and yellowish. But the undershirt might be green.
I guess, and he's about to be taken into the underworld. He's about to go into the darkness as his father takes him into the castle of doom, so to say.
The fortress of solitude, kind of.
That's it.
The Bat Cave, I guess.
Well, this is another point about like to go all the way back to the idea of the chess metaphor.
Yeah.
in Chinese chess, there's a. Well, let me pull this up. The picture of the chessboard again.
Inner sanctum. That was the word I was looking for.
Ooh, nice.
In the Chinese chess game, you see this quad, like a square right here. The emperor, which is like equivalent to the king, cannot leave this zone. And so that's very similar to the way that the red team, they can't leave their village. And although, the Wu character does leave his fortress, there's a very strong fortress concept going on, which is why I give them like the Kronos Rhea association, god and goddess of fortresses, which is also, it's a cube, it's a square.
Yep.
So they get to his fortress. They man, we have a lot of movie left to go through.
Dude, we're almost at 15 minutes. We got 2 hours in there. We barely even gotten to we're not even close to the half of the movie.
We'll see. Crazy. We'll see what happens. You guys want to keep going?
Oh,
yeah.
Keep
going.
Push through.
But yeah, these guys are lined up like chess pieces. They even look like bishops. And their pawns is also part of, in standard chess.
So we're looking at the Chinese board. He's one of the red, looking at the black pieces. Is that what we're thinking?
I see Jenny B just entered the chat. She's the one that pointed out that chess in Chinese sounds like Shang-Chi. So Great time to pop in. This is exactly what we're on right now.
Hey, before we leave the scene,
thank you for that.
I want to point out that Lee in the chat again pointed out that the Portuguese were the greatest sailors of all time. So maybe that's the Macau thing is part of maritime law kind of thing.
Nice. And also Portuguese, their language is it's incredibly important. I think of it as an amalgamation of a lot of lost tongues, a lot of lost arts. Hail back because they could transport culture. They were, the bridge. They were bridging cultural gaps. And the word geese is one of the lost languages. Geese is where Greenspeak hails back to. It's a very important lost language. So yeah, Portuguese is fascinating history. Okay, here, I'll put this forward to really consummate that. A lot of people are surprised to find out that Brazilian Portuguese has Japanese words in their language. And one great example of this is obrigado. Obrigado means thank you. Obrigado means obliged, obligation, In Japanese, the same word, thank you, is arigato. So arigato is a Portuguese word. And that's absolutely fascinating because Japanese was supposed to be a closed off, hermetically sealed kingdom.
That's a topic in and of itself.
It is. But
I think Japan may have got the same treatment that United States got in terms of false history and an actual more ancient and uniform civilization. They've got all the same crazy Greco-Roman architecture that just I guess popped up out of nowhere at the exact time that they opened their borders. But there's so much to dispute about that. That's a huge tangent. Snake Jones, welcome. We still got at least another hour. I would be surprised. It might be a long one.
I'm down.
We're doing our best. So here's another screenshot that I thought was important. Another background symbolism that I want to kick it over to you to, initiate us through the symbolism here. But this is where you see they've been captured and taken to the place where their father's fortress is, right? And you actually see what is on this poster at the very end of the film. So I might try to scrub to that because she takes down some of the posters. You can see what this is. But this is her bedroom. His sister, Jialing, I think is her name. If I'm getting that wrong, super sorry. Yeah.
This is the scene that what they're talking about, when just opposite of this, when she looks to him or to her when she's talking, those torsions are. You can see this poster that's in the center here, just to the left. It's the same thing. It's the skull with the crown. It's doubled. It shows you what it is.
Yep, it's in there 3 times.
Triple crown.
Triple crown.
Oh, it is in there 3 times. You are correct, sir.
Yep. And
a lot of skulls again. Skulls associated with the same character, Zhao Ling. There's a skull.
The Vitruvian
There's
man
a skull.
in the center at the bottom, that is a skeleton of the Vitruvian man.
And so here we have La Santa Muerta.
Oh, yeah.
La Santa Muerta.
There's
seeing
the typical pirate skull and crossbones right there in the top right.
Yep, the Pirates, ones with fire. This looks like a scythe-wielding angel of death as well.
Yep. Total piracy going on. Yeah.
And here's the ring of the vessel, or the angelic sailors abducting with a pyramid-shaped tractor beam. I assume that's what we're looking at here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. Pirates.
So,
you know what I just realized
from this? There's also like three hearts card.
16 right there in the middle.
Kind of makes me, the 3 hearts there kind of makes me think of the 3 of Swords, which has a big red heart on it in the Rider Way, and often represents hardship or heartbreak.
Oh, interesting.
Here it is right here.
Nice. And the lamp is a toroid. It's like one big toroid.
Yeah, how did I miss that?
Yep.
It looks like a Tesla coil.
Great call. Something just occurred to me. So if the mother's name was Zhang Li and the daughter's name was Jia Ling, then they just transferred the NG from the first name to the last. And that's kind of beautiful. I wonder if that's a tradition, if there's some, cultural nuance that we're missing because we're gringos.
I think when they announce who they are, they say their surname before their given name.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that might be the way it goes.
Yeah. It's just interesting. They're so similar. Nice. Yeah, man.
Okay. Now where to go from here? I didn't exactly have the next thing queued. Let me see what else we got. You guys go for it.
Well, there's that actor. They find the Joker, the comedic relief hanging down in the dungeon. And
there is a scene where they have like dinner with the father, and he explains this is important because he explains that he's gonna go back to he's gonna find their mother's village, that he has a way to get there, and he shows them the map, which is made of water, actually. Right. So I think you have, maybe in the Telegram, I'm gonna scroll up and look for it, some stuff to say about that part.
Yep. Yeah, this is
the 2 amulets end up being the eyes of a dragon.
Yeah.
That unlocks the magical map to, which is never really explained how that even works, or how they have magic outside of the village, but it's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, almost to it. All right. Yeah, here's I found your thing on it, so I'm going to save it and bring it up big.
Yeah, and that's the part where Dad, at dinner, Dad is like, talking about history, and
he reveals his true name.
His true name, and he points out that they gave him a name. They dressed him up. They dressed him in a false name and tried to frame him for all kinds of gnarly history. So they find out the dad is getting voice to skull messages, and they're like, "Dad, that's not Mom." And he's like, then he gets, he takes the other pendant and he shows them his master plan. This is the diabolical monologue where he's telling them, showing his true colors. And then, like you said, he takes the pendant and he puts it on that dragon's face, a stone dragon, and all of a sudden water pours out of the walls, and they are shown a water map, which is really significant because it makes me think about the fact that the 10 rings refers back to that lunar standstill calendar and the 10 cycles of that spiral, and how water and the moon are so closely associated. The moon card is in the sign of Pisces. And so, yeah. And so this water is going to show them the route to the hidden, Tao Lo? Is that the name of the hidden kingdom?
Yes.
Yes. And so, and also, in the background there, you have the 2 dragons, or the 2 lions guarding the gates, the Gatos at the gates. And
Gatos at the gates.
Yeah. And also, just a quick other point, we have 4 pillars. Those could be considered the 4 seasons of the zodiac. And the map is about to course its way through essentially through the sky clock. But another thing that has come up on my radar recently is the Kyborium, or the Cyborium, Ciborium. And the Cyborium is a sacred location that is covered by an awning, a decorative awning, and supported by 4 pillars. And that's generally considered a Catholic symbol. It's a Greek word that you'll see it oftentimes in Catholic churches. But here we're in China, and we're looking at a Kyborium, 4 pillars covering a sacred location that is very ornately decorated. And the secrets of the universe are about to unfurl under this Kyborium, a Chinese Kyborium, you could say. So there was a lot going on here, but that image I shared in the Telegram, the dialogue talks about the passage will be revealed. And I just noticed that passage has the AG, passage, and AG is a symbol for silver as well. So it's just amazing how many Piscean water signs are being hailed in this one scene. When they find out the route. In the 10 rings of the lunar standstill, you're tracking the course. You're learning the path. You're tracking the route of the moon.
So the way they find it is by being introduced to the Hunden.
Right.
The little faceless, winged, furry caterpillar thing.
The chicken pig.
Chicken pig, yeah. Headless chicken pig. I don't know what to call it other than it's a real.
It's a winged headless chicken pig.
Right, as you do,
Well, okay, so when they meet this guy, I'm gonna try to referee this to move it a little forward.
Nice.
It has a real mythological correspondence, though, right?
Yeah.
Jiang. So okay, they meet this. They get thrown in the dungeon. They meet this guy who's also held captive there. It's a callback character from, I think, Iron Man 3, and he's quoting Macbeth.
Yes.
All about that skull symbolism showing up again.
Oh, good call, Chance. So I have the
There's
poem.
a skull in the scene on his vanity desk there.
So this
and see, look, he's holding his head, holding the skull.
Oh yeah.
He's lost his mind clearly as well.
Right.
I love this scene, dude, because this. So his name is Trevor Slattery. He's the fake Mandarin. We know this from the other Iron Man movies and stuff. Right. So he's the face of the public-facing media face, the scapegoat for the media in the Iron Man movies for the Mandarin. So this guy has been pushed out to the public conscious as this is the Mandarin. And he tells you right here that he was hired by the BBC. He answered an ad that he was going to work for the BBC to do this.
223 BBC.
One of the biggest media conglomerates in the world
Yep.
to be a literal false flag, that the news media sought him out, not the other way around.
Right.
Did you catch that? It was,
oh yeah.
they created him.
Right.
Now, what we need to take from that is that shit's going on in the background while we're being told this thing. Don't look at the hand
they're
pointing at the moon.
actors.
Look at the moon. Don't look at the hand pointing at the moon. You'll miss all that heavenly glory.
He's a crisis actor for sure.
Yeah.
Right, he's a crisis actor, exactly.
Which they even, Fresh Prince of Smell Hair, his administration's even like now accusing the other side of using crisis actors, so admitting that that's even a thing.
But they won't call it what it is. They won't use the term crisis actor. They're dancing around that term. But
they're talking about it.
Yeah, but they won't use the like incredibly efficient word that it is. It's a fucking crisis actor they're like, they're immune, or I'm sorry, they're allergic to the truth. They can't use the word that would reveal what it actually is. They use all this dance around. So do you guys want to hear the quick little the snippet that he's quoting from Macbeth?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is an initiation. When they walk in on him in this location, and they are reflected in the mirror, there is an initiation going on. There's a skull on the table, there's the mirror, and he turns around and he starts quoting knock, knock, knock from Macbeth, the scene of the drunken porter. It's Act 2, Scene 3, and it goes, "Here a knocking indeed. If a man were porter of Hellgate, he should have old turning the key. Knock, knocking within. Knock, knock. Who's there? I, name of the Beelzebub. Here a farmer that hanged himself on the expectation of plenty. Come in time. Have napkins now about you. Here you'll sweat fort. Knocking within. Knock, knock. Who's there? In the other devil's name, Faith. Here's an equivocator that could swear in both the scales against the either scale, who committed treason enough for God's sake, yet could not equivocate to heaven. Oh, come in, equivocator." And then it goes on from there. But I find it just, there's so much going on in there, but the equivocator is really something. It's like to say many things at the same time. It sounds like you're hearing one thing, but there's many other things also being equally intended in the same words.
Equivocator.
Yep. And that's what English, he's talking about English, I think. The English language, it's duplicitous. It can be triplicitous. It has many.
It's pentaplicitous, honestly.
Yeah. So many layers of meaning to every damn word. So yeah, that's just a snippet from that scene that they're quoting there.
Awesome. We're not. Are we going to keep going, or we need to like make this 2 parts, because like we haven't even got to. So his name is Morris. They've named the little Hundun guy Morris for like the cat for some reason. I don't know.
That might be a Morrison, Jim Morrison. That he was an actor. Working for a military agenda. He was a front man for a military agenda, a CIA asset.
He was the son of
Morris.
Yeah. Huh.
That's an interesting, just a
Maybe.
thought. So we should, I guess from there, they have a big breakout and they
steal the cars. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Steal the cars.
Yeah. I noticed that the car they stole is Razor Fist's car.
So now
it's an electric BMW, by the way.
Yeah, nice.
That is an X3.
Ooh, there's the Trickster Tri-X. The Trickster
The electricity aspect is important too, that it's electric. This will come up more in the fourth act at the end of the film.
Mhm.
But I guess they do show this earlier when they attack the fight club, the, goon squad that he's got, the trained thugs, they use electrified weapons.
Oh.
And this is very, in my opinion, allegorical to this idea of possession. So they're using, I think I really wrote down my thoughts and notated them here. So let me find what I said to myself.
Yeah.
Okay. So their use of the electrified weapons is a lot like the artificial chi, if you will, dirty electricity, the Jinn, the cut off from source, self-contained, but isolated and compartmentalized version of energy that we use in most of our technology versus, when they fight the other villagers, the real chess game, the black clad soldiers versus the red clad villagers, they're using weapons that even glow with chi and life force energy from their dragon heart. Mm-hmm. So it's very much like this. These electrified weapons are against this living life force energy weaponry. I think very important dichotomy of the artificial versus the natural, and calls back to this idea that I alluded to, that a lot of the themes in this movie are subtle, in my opinion, subtly suggesting entity, attachment, and influence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. And also the electric, them having the electricity and being the bad guys kind of makes me think about the global warming agenda also, that now we have to redefine the wheel. So for the sake of advancement,
one of the things this image particularly struck me that they look like riot cops. They don't look so much as military as paramilitary.
Yeah.
More like riot gear.
Nice.
When we see riot cops in the news, this is what we see. There's a little more Asian influence, but these don't look like ninjas to me. These look like riot cops.
And they use, obviously riot cops use like the cattle prod, the taser, the electrified weaponry. And I mean, as far as a plot point goes, it's kind of a huge hole, in my opinion, that this dude, his army has non-lethal weaponry.
Oh, right.
But it's a kung fu movie, so they got to come in with batons and electric crossbows and not machine guns. But they could have just come in with machine guns and mowed everybody down, I would think.
Good point. Yeah.
Or some other type of, this is meant to look like advanced technology weaponry, but it doesn't really seem lethal.
And they have that Persian Phrygian shaped cap. It's almost a cross between Phrygian.
It's Mongolian, dude. It's got the horse hair.
Yeah, Mongols. Yeah.
Which is he's supposed to be like the Mongolian Khan. He's like the Genghis Khan.
You got it. Yeah.
The Wu character.
Yeah.
I think in the 10 Rings insignia for, as it was shown in Iron Man when they were in Iraq, actually the text in the 10 Rings was the 10 Mongolian tribes names.
Okay.
Oh, right.
They changed it in this.
That's right.
Yeah. So one point we kind of breezed through, but Chance, you probably wanted to talk about that water portal.
That's important.
When they cross over from escaping and they get away and they go driving off in the electric razor hand BMW.
Hey, a Sacred Spider in the chat wants to know if he could send you or she could send you an email, Gabriel.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Let's see. I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, there you go.
Yep.
I'll pull forward okay, so I think that we're more than halfway through, because a lot of what we've talked about sets up groundwork for other symbolism. We've already kind of fast forwarded in some places.
One of the things I noticed when they first get into that realm, they finally find Tao Lo, and the Ben Kingsley character is looking at the phoenixes, And he's like, oh, Morrison's there. That's just normal. Like there's just phoenixes everywhere. Like, and the weird horse, the mystical, all the mystical animals and things. And there's like dragons and, oh yeah, this is normal. This is real. Like he acknowledges that this is the real. Like you better get used to it because what your understanding of the world just changed a lot. Like you better get used to magic being a real thing, like real quick.
Yeah, so I think we can go pretty quickly through talking about the scene of them finding the forest. They don't have the map, but their little furry Morris chicken pig creature shows them the path through the woods. And just so I think we haven't shown it on screen, looks like that.
Mm-hmm.
They're driving through the forest and the bamboo is rearranging itself rapidly, trying to eat them.
And she's driving again.
Yep, she's the driver.
Always.
Shang-Chi's put in the back seat.
Mm-hmm.
He's still in the underworld. He hasn't emerged into Ares yet. So they're driving through this forest, kind of like a labyrinth, if you will. Wonder what sign this puts them in if they're traversing the labyrinth. Where have we attained in the sky clock if we're keeping that metaphor going? We can be open to thinking about that. We don't necessarily have to carry that metaphor along. I didn't try to map it out myself.
Yeah, I think they would be transitioning right through Sagittarius. They're about to cross into Capricorn.
Finding their direction.
Right. And they're going to go through it's Capricorn, a water element.
Oh, and you know what? It's definitely Scorpio.
Fire, no?
Yeah.
So, okay, just to back up, I think definitely when their father has captured them.
Yes.
Is very much like the Libra after Virgo because he's passing judgment on them. Also, there's a interesting balance in that he wears white and black. The father does. He's kind of at his best behavior temporarily, and then following that, that could be adjustment. Also, he's adjusting their course, and then following that, they reveal this secret map, this water map.
Yeah,
that's very Scorpio thematically.
Lee points
out
they're
put into the dungeon at that point. They've been they're at their lowest point. They're captured,
betrayed,
very Scorpio. And then next would be they're going on this direct. They're finding their direction with Sagittarius. They're finding the direct path through the forest. So
it's also the labyrinth too. It shows you the whole bamboo thing is the labyrinth, which Lee points out as Taurus, and that ties to the Minotaur.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. Well, there isn't a Minotaur in this, but there is a labyrinth. So
yeah,
it's an interesting point. I mean, a lot of these movies that do encode symbolism, not necessarily encoding on purpose, but things that you can correlate back to astrology, don't necessarily take you through that journey in order. That's common too for a lot of movies. So yeah, here's the labyrinth from above. Right. Can't really play it, but these pathways open and close. So important part that comes next is, I think I'm going to ditch trying to metaphorize it all to the sky clock just for the sake of time.
Well, they're going to cross the winter solstice, and that's the gate they're going to go through now.
Very good. So it's an important part. Here's a screenshot of that. They're coming through a water portal. That's the liminal space between dimensions. There's a interesting Cancer correlation in the sense that they're, in the vehicle. They are submerged in water, but above them is this tunnel of like enchanted starry material. It looks like they're in a tunnel of stars. And what did you call that canopy above the chariot rider of the chariot card?
The Cyborium.
Cyborium.
And it means so many things. It has so many applications, all the way to a psilocybin. The psilocybin mushroom is an awning. You're underneath the covering.
Interesting. Okay, so another important thing is when you mentioned they're seeing enchanted animals when they get into the other dimension. These guys are very much symbolic of spirit possession. More in Japanese folklore, maybe than Chinese, but probably in Asian folklore in general. I know for sure in Japanese folklore that the fox spirit bewitches people, and it's very much like the type of accusation you might have got in, Salem during the witch trials, that they would say, "Oh, you're possessed by a fox spirit. That's why you're so much trouble." And also, there's a lot of stories and mythos and all kinds of stuff about the actuality of these possessing spirits being in some way related to or symbolized by the fox, that they may actually be fox spirits. And so the more tails these things have, the more powerful they are. And I think these ones have like 9 tails, which is the most that they're said to attain in the folklore. I need to look up what a fox spirit is really called. I'm going to look that up.
What were you going to say, Gordy?
Oh, this is that thing you and I were talking about, the cat of 9 tails.
Right.
That's
yep.
Which
the kitsune.
They even use in the video games. Isn't that one of the? Isn't Tails the other, like the counterpart to Sonic the Hedgehog?
Yeah. Man.
Yeah, and he's got 2 tails, and that's why he's kind of sucks.
Right.
He doesn't have 9.
Right. So you notice the mountains in the background. We are in Capricorn, is an earth element, and Capricorn is a hybrid creature. It's a sea goat, so it has the chimera is intrinsic to the Capricorn. Yeah, that's a great image. James, do you want me to tell that story?
Yeah, it's really good.
This is a great story. So the fox has a long history of mythological legends, and one of my favorite legends about the fox is a story of a Japanese commander who was told to go and wipe out an entire village of innocent paupers. And instead of wiping them out, he sent them away to escape as fugitives. And he told them, "I will face the consequences to save this, these innocent people." And so before he went to face his king, his daimyo, he made some certain preparations because he knew what the punishment would be for his disobedience. And then he went into the king's chamber in the top of the castle to report back to his daimyo and tell him of his disobedience. And the daimyo ordered him to commit seppuku immediately. So he said his death poem, pulls out the sword, sticks it in deep, rips it across the abdomen, traditional seppuku style, and he doubles over in a pool of blood. Now he knows the process here. He knows that the guards are going to take the body and drag it out, and he knows the whole layout of the castle. And the guards come and they pick up his body and they carry him out of the king's chamber, and they're going across the castle wall, the ramparts above. And right at that key moment, he springs to life and he startles the guards, and they both fumble back at the fact that his body is completely reanimated. And he jumps off of the castle wall onto a bamboo tree. And the bamboo tree slowly bends over the moat that surrounds the castle and allows him to jump off the edge of the bamboo tree. And just as he jumps off the edge of the bamboo tree, he pulls out the dead fox that he had stashed in his abdominal pocket. And he puts the fox's body on the bamboo tree and lets it go. And the bamboo tree shoots the fox back up over the castle wall. And the 2 guards see the dead fox flying through the air. And this is the origin of the magical fox and its shape-shifting abilities.
Wow. What an interesting
Perfect
story.
timing. I mean, that story was great. I got a snack and water and went to the bathroom, and I listened to it, even though I've heard it before on this. Let's cut it on the actual stream. So thank you for giving me that leeway. Now I'm like fresh and ready to finish strong. I was starting to fade. I needed a little
All
Pick
right.
me up.
Right on.
I'm just looking over at the Rockfin chat. I haven't peeped it for a while. Yeah.
One of the things that I noticed, one of the notes that I wanted to make is the corollary. You know, I know we love the Lord of the Rings chants, that I wanted to bring that up, the correlation between the rings and the power making you mad at a certain point, because he wore them, because the dad wore them for so long, it made him power mad and took him away from the source. He had the power, but not the source, which made him ineffective with the power, because he had the power, but when he was, by keeping them on too long, by only focusing on the power of it,
Right.
it made him lose control of what was true and what was an illusion. Because the reason he goes to that Tao Lo is because he hears his dead wife's voice calling to him from behind the where the evil is, behind the dragon scales. And
Possession again. The idea of
possession again.
Voice to skull
It's
too.
Voice to skull. Exactly. That's right. That's right. And it's driving him mad. Like he's not, because he's not connected to source. His illusions are up. When he's connected to source, he would be able to tell if that was his actual wife's voice that needed to be rescued, or the actual demon who's behind that wall, who's telling him to let the demon out, essentially.
Snake made a really good comment here. Power must flow through you. Never is it to be held.
That's right. It's always meant to give
we're
it
a battery.
away.
We're not about, we're not a battery in the sense we're like a conduit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, nice. In another point about
we should really apply that to the universal galvanic battery model, that maybe another way of looking at it isn't so much that it is a battery, but it is a conduit in a celestial sense. Because when you look at the way the planets go from anode to cathode, like Ben got into last night on weaving spiders.
Yeah.
Very much a conduit concept there.
Yeah. Just a quick point on the voice to skull is that the wife, she's repeating herself. She's saying almost the same thing every time she comes, her voice is brought to him. It's, we'll be together again soon. Help me, save me. We'll be together again soon. Help me, save me. And that's part of mind control, is repetition, is just say the same thing over and over until it must be true. And that's just an interesting pattern I picked up on. And another quick point, the initiation of the battle, where the battle breaks out, we're in the sign of Capricorn, right? And there's the horn. This is the shofar. This is another initiation symbol, because we're initiating the winter. We're at the beginning point, coming off that solstice and beginning the climb through the year. But I just think that's interesting that the ultimate battle at the end happens on the sign of Capricorn, where the shofar and the ram's horn comes into play.
Very interesting. And we brought up Tales from Sonic. Sonic does, I think, connect here more. Because look, here is Shang-Chi after he takes the rings from his father. Looks just like the rings in Sonic the Hedgehog. And also, not really Sonic related, the 10 rings are in a ring around him. He's the new Satan. He's the new Saturn.
Nice.
He's the new one, because the 10 is one.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And there's so much CERN metaphor baked into that seal, that ultimate seal that he's trying to break through. And sure enough, the monsters that come out, those little soul suckers, those are little baby Cthulhus. And eventually, once enough of them steal enough loosh, then the big mama, daddy Cthulhu of them all comes out.
That that wasn't lost on me either.
Yeah.
The vampire thing of this part.
Yeah.
If you guys have ever seen that version of Van Helsing with Hugh Jackman, where he's fighting Dracula, and Dracula has his minions. They look like this. His children, all of Dracula's children that go out to feed on the villagers and suck their souls look like these guys. And it ends up in that Dracula is the dragon, the red dragon. So I mean, all sorts of symbolism in this thing.
Very vampiric.
Yeah, now we're starting to get into the chthonic. But this is also like reptilians too. And so Boxwork is really, to call back to him, some of the best for demonstrating that the symbolism behind the vampire, but also the harpy, which is flying, the siren connecting to the mermaids and the echidna. All these things are symbolically linked to the seraphim or the winged reptiles and the, angelic sailors, which are correspondent to the rings and to the circle and to the UFO and the flying saucer. So to just further that point, let me find a screenshot I had. Got to do a lot of scrolling up and down our chat group here, but it really does fit. And here we go. When they explain this dweller in the deep,
right?
They show this big wood carving. And what are they coming out of?
A big ring.
A big ring.
That looks like a Stargate, doesn't it?
It also looks like a chakra lotus.
It does.
I'd have to count how many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that 8 or 9? I think it's 8.
Like 8 on top of 8.
Yeah.
They're stacked. That's the 88 constellations too.
Oh, wow.
I'm trying to remember what chakra that is. I'm going to look through some of the chakra symbolism, which one corresponds to the 8-petaled.
Dweller on the deep, or dweller in the deep, that's a D and a D, a DD, which, a lot of people would say, oh, Dungeons and Dragons, but that's also Death's Door. That's a 44, hails back to the son of Sam. A lot of DD is very significant.
And they're abductors, they're snatchers, they're
rapiers,
reptiles. Those words are etymologically linked as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's strangely like
demons are aliens, that type of theme.
Yeah.
Or what aliens are demons, a better way to put it.
Rapture. It's like a rapture.
It's a rapture. It's a dark rapture.
Yeah.
Yeah, rapture is from the word that means rape. It's the same word in the etymology. It's crazy. It's crazy that the Catholic Church made this whole rapture mythology out of the book of Revelation, which was always ever sky clock. Like it was all Revelation is all sky clock stuff.
Yep. In the Order of St. John.
But they made it like it's the opposite of it's very akin to how they make the Bible historical. I'm not going against it being literal because it's obviously literal in the sense that it's literary, but they're making it historical. They apply the same concept in forward to make Revelation, prophetic to future history. But either way, it's the same thing. It's taking what exists in the present moment, the now, nature and the sky clock, and cutting you and putting you in the past or the future instead of the present moment.
Right.
You're on paper and you're projecting in your mind, but you're never centered. The Book of Revelation of the Method, Sacred Spider says. Yeah, good one.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And, Chance, I love that line you dropped last night in the Weaving Spiders about cutting the Gordian knot and how incredibly similar the Gorgon and the decapitating of the Gorgon, how similar that is to Alexander coming and cutting the Gordian knot, because once that knot was it was prophesized that a chosen one would come and untie it, solve the riddle of that knot. And once he sliced it in half with his sacred sword, there's no going back. The prophecy is fulfilled. Whether you like the way it was fulfilled or not, there's no going back. So I just love that fact that the Gorgon, cutting of the Gorgon's head, has those tentacles bound up, the knottiness of the hair. So it corresponds very powerfully with the Gordian knot of Alexander the Great. Which if anybody knows in the chat what the name of that sword was, he used a very special sword for that fulfilling of the prophecy. And it corresponds with pulling the sword from the stone. It's just amazing how these things overlap. They just have it's just the cultural nuance to, where it originated from. It's kind of neat.
So we're jumping around the fourth act kind of a lot, but I don't think we need to give everyone a perfect representation of the plot of this movie. They could watch it for that. My favorite part of this scene, of this fourth act, was when they were preparing for the battle, and his friend Katie she starts to learn archery. And it's that moment right before she's carrying all those arrows, which reminded me of the Ten of Wands, a lot of the variations of the Ten of Wands. But she just thinks she's being helpful. She just thinks she's carrying the arrows and the bow out to the archery range. And that's when the matriarch that she's walking with says the most beautiful line any archer could ever hear. And that is, if you aim at nothing, you hit nothing. And that is so powerful. And it's so accurate for her to say that to Katie, because at that point, Katie takes on her hero's journey and she starts to go through development. Whoa, Gordy. Is that new or is that old? Oh, hold on. You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah, I've had this thing for years.
Oh, wow.
It's my brass skull. Dude, I should have named him years ago, but
he's missing bunny ears.
He's my Horatio.
Nice.
But I keep him around as my memento mori on my nightstand there.
Sweet.
But yeah, you guys were talking. I love it. Snake Jones. This movie sucks. Hey man, it's not about that, man. We're past that. They all suck.
Yeah, so true.
We're past that. We're way past that.
But you know what? I gotta confess. Yeah, I saw it in the theaters with the.
I like this one.
Yeah, I liked it too because I'm a.
I liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like everything about it, but overall, I was entertained. I didn't hate every minute of it. I liked more than I didn't like. A lot of people involved in making this movie have nothing to do with communism or occultism or, to make a movie like this, it takes a lot of artists. And some of the artists were inspired with what they did, and some were following orders and some were programmed, and it's a mixed bag for sure. But that Ten of Wands, to bring it back to that, is a 10. So, well, let me put it back on screen. Mm-hmm. We've been talking 10 a lot. 10 represents completion in tarot. It represents the 10 of Wands specifically has potential, according to Tessarion, a connection to survival, military endeavors, bodybuilding, martial arts, dangerous, challenging sports or adventures, nice. Achieving mastery. So it's very fitting to connect that to 10 of Wands, because she has a one-day montage and all of a sudden she's a really good archer. Classic Hollywood. You're going to need a montage.
Right. and the people in the background are working bow staff, so it's just incredibly apropos, I thought. So this is so while she's having her montage, Sean or Shang-Chi is having his training with Michelle Yao, and I get goosebumps just thinking about that woman. She is one of my favorite. She's one of my favorite. Everything she does is just magic to me. That's it. This is the scene. This is the part in the whole scene. Guys, I was in the movie theater and I'm with my best buddy and his son, who's like, I think maybe 10 or 11. And I'm in fucking tears. I'm fucking crying during the fight scene of this fucking movie.
Oh, I was too, man. Goosebumps with this scene when she controls the wind and you see it. It shows the flow.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yep. And she opens him up. He goes from, the fist to the, from earth into wind, into air.
Mm-hmm.
And she
makes me think of how Mitch talks about when you basically like unplug the ether in an area, when you remove a blockage, sometimes when they like gift a tower that's a particular gnarly place, the wind rushes in. And I've had a few personal experiences kind of related to some of the stuff I got into on the Weave last night, back in my days where I was experimental with different psychedelics.
Yeah.
I had a few experiences where when I hit a certain point of like switched onness, the wind would literally swirl around me. Even one time it happened indoors. I felt wind rushing around me. I don't know what everyone else was experiencing, but
nice.
Makes me think of all that. This scene with the airbending too.
Yeah, man. Yep. This was a beautiful scene. I really love this part. And so, he learns he's been trained by his father in his father's style. And this is the part where he taps into that matriarchal contribution, and he learns to soften. And that becomes the secret weapon at the end when he's fighting his father, because his father taught him everything he knew in that hard style. And when he is able to flip the script, that was the style that conquered his father to begin with. That's why his father had to succumb to his mother, because
it's like becoming supple and flexible, and therefore not rigid and breakable.
Yes.
We should point out that this is his aunt as well. This is his mother's sister.
Yeah. Yep. And they are basically, you can think of these as kind of airbenders, in that kind of bringing that avatar element to the story.
Yeah, even wearing the same color that the airbenders wore.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this was my favorite part in the movie. Typical of me to get all soft and mushy for the sake of the kung fu metaphors.
Then we get taken to, now that he's finally like tapped into the feminine side of his abilities, which would also represent the unconscious. Looking at this difficulty at the beginning card to bring it all the way back around.
Yeah, man.
His life force energy is now in a more harmonious and balanced expression. Therefore, he can tap into his flow. His chi is flowing. So now he can access parts of the unconscious, the lake or the abyss, the top element here, the deep water, that he was unable to reach before. And this is demonstrated by a flashback to the scene where he's 7 years old and rival gang that his father pissed off shows up at their compound while dad is away, and they kill his mom in front of him. I mean, he goes inside and watches through the door, but that's the source of his greatest trauma. And then at that point, we get a real MK Ultra scene where it shows him again as the same age, where dad takes him to get revenge on the gangsters that killed the mom. And he brutally murders all these guys in the middle of this restaurant there at her bar. And then at the end, he tells his son, a blood debt must be repaid with blood. And then he asked, will you help me? Which is very, very programmy,
Yes.
traumatize the hell out of him in this moment,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
then get him to, like, swear an oath, basically.
Yes, and I want to point out the reflective silver mirror wall. This is silver.
Another initiation.
Yep, symbolizes. Remember the other initiation with the actor? They were seeing themselves in the mirror. There's this. This is a point he will reflect back upon for the rest of his life. That's what that's a good way to say what this is about to do to him. He's about to be programmed on this traumatic moment that he will reflect back on forever throughout the rest of his life.
Yeah, very good point.
And also the name of the gang is the Iron Gang. And they're the ones who kill his mom. And this is just interesting because Iron Man is a nemesis to that clan of the 10 Rings. And also, iron is forbidden in Solomon's temple.
Also, in the fairy realm, which is where they're at, iron is harmful to fairies. You were probably already going here, right?
They
kill his mom, who's from the enchanted realm. She's essentially like a fae folk.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Definitely a nature spirit, fae,
right?
For sure.
Yeah, so it's just powerful that iron has that plays such a big role.
So, okay, fast forward a little bit. He resolves he's going to kill his dad if he has to. Actually, he decides he's just going to do it. And then we get to the final battle. They show up. They're all in black. The villagers, they're all in red. And Shang-Chi gets his new armor costume, which is black and red, symbolizing that he's the fusion of both sides, the father and the mother.
Yeah. You could almost say it's blue and red, too. Almost just enough to be Democrat Republican throughout.
What do they call it when you mix Pepsi and Coke?
What?
When I was a kid, if you go to the fountain and you mix all the sodas together, it's called a suicide.
Suicide. Good call.
That's what we got with politics. We got Pepsi and Coke mixed together.
Oh, and okay, so here we are at a Kyborium again.
And look at the 5 petals too. Check it out.
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah. Look at that. That's the whole rosy cross rose thing that's in the what is that? That's on the swords. Each one of the tarot of the swords there's one of those 5-pointed roses, red roses in each of the Golden Dawn deck.
Interesting. So right now we have Dad is wearing the alloy. The 10 rings are metals. That's the winter, the diamonds, the earth element. In 180 degrees across the zodiac, in opposition to the earth diamonds element, is the wands. And the sun is rocking that bow staff. So here we have diamonds versus clubs. Winter versus summer in their weapons of choice here.
I think that is appropriate metaphor. Although this is also kind of a scene where he's not quite, he has to get one more baptism before he can actually win. Yes. So maybe he hasn't quite gone through, he goes into Pisces before he rises into Aries. This is very important.
Yes.
And I'll find the moment of that. His father defeats him in this fight, although he puts up a good fight.
Initially,
he basically says to the dad, like, she wouldn't want to be with you anyway if she was alive. He's trying to break him out of the delusions. Dad super punches him with the rings, tries to kill him, but the armor seems to be strong enough to save his life.
Nice.
And he goes flying off into. Let me find a good.
Chance, do a little thing with your camera. You're just a little fuzzy. It's like got your microphone more than you. There you go.
Love when that happens.
Yep, there you go. And I want to point out when
come back, camera.
That when you mentioned that his camera saves, there you go. His armor saves him. That armor is the same color as that paper dragon that his mama gave him when he was a baby. and the armor was waiting for him at the temple. The family was ready to give him his birthright of this armor. This is all placenta metaphor.
Yeah.
And it's the red armor that
it's the
saves
ship
him when he's when his father tries to drown him here.
Right.
Yeah, he gets submerged in the water. This is him submerged in Pisces.
Yeah.
He's the two fish, baby and placenta.
Yeah.
He's got his vessel. And then so he's submerged under the water, the deepest part of the lake, which is Pisces, the deepest water, the 12th sign. And the meets the dragon, basically.
Yes. You could
the dragon's at the bottom of the lake. It rises up with him on it.
And he's rocking that sack red.
And that's the Aries moment. He literally rides the dragon up out of the deep water and up into the sky to the high place.
Yes.
And at that point, he's ready to win the fight with his dad. So that's like the resurrection scene, because he's thought, he looks like he's dead. He's submerged. Mm-hmm. He's baptized.
Yep. And then his dad jumps across the waters and goes over to the big CERN seal of CERN gate, while he's down below finding the family ancestry and summoning. He's in the abyss. He's hitting rock bottom, as they say.
All right. Having to surrender.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he comes rip-roaring up.
Right.
And
having to surrender to his higher self, that red dragon.
Yeah.
That's back here. He has to ride that dragon back out of the water, allowing that red dragon energy to kind of take over the show for him for a little while.
Yeah, he becomes, he rides on the flow of this ancestral energy. He stops trying to drive and control, and he learns to go with the flow in a way, which is very symbolic of the softening that allows him to defeat his father with the Tai Chi looking dance moves that we talked about early on.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things you were talking about, that ancestral energy, one of the quotes I'm not sure where it is, but it's when they're in the training, kind of initiation, working on their chi thing, is they one of the elders says you are a product of all that came before you. And that's been a real thing for me that I've been finding too. And another one that was great is 1,000 years ago and 1,000 years from now, we will always be together. She says to them.
Yeah.
That, and we are all the product. It's like the same quote. We've read this in probably hundreds of mythologies all over the place, that we are the product of all our ancient ancestors before us. We were the sum of our ancestors that we should be embodying right now.
Also relevant to note is she gets her inheritance too, but it's more lunar, silver.
Right. She's still in
which
the
is
black,
kind of foreshadowing her being the next inheritor of the the dynasty, in a way. In the crime sense, being the bad guy. She's going to be the bad gal in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I assume. So we should probably, I think, like the last important stuff to get into, is just the chthonic stuff of this dweller in the deep. I don't think we need to go much further than that. We've been at it for a while.
Yeah.
The steam is low for me, who didn't have dinner yet. having fun with this though.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you guys want to go? Like, we kind of discussed him defeating the father. The father breaks open the big CERN gate. Shang-Chi takes the rings from him, is able to capture and redirect the chi if you will, like Aikido style.
Yeah. And then he throws it on the ground.
Yeah.
He says, fuck this. We don't have to fight. You know? And that's one of my favorite moves in Capoeira. In the heat of the moment, I've seen fellas who just, somebody came on real aggressive, took them out, real rude, just rude, no grace at all. And then the guy in response, his response is he'll do a couple walks around the ring and he'll get all pumped up, make it look like, oh, you want some of this, you want some of this. And then he'll just like fake the guy out like he's about to go back into the dance, and he'll turn on his heel and walk out of the ring. And just leave the guy with that
ultimate diss.
Ultimate diss is, you're not even worthy of seeing my best game, obviously. And to just walk out. And that's what that reminded me of. I thought that was the high road, you know. There's always a high road. And it can sometimes you just, you know, with a little style, you can just leave them with their own problems. This isn't mine, this is yours. And that was kind of what
LC made a good point in the chat. Aquarius is being the baptism. I feel that. And maybe the Piscean aspect is following that, or we skip over Pisces and symbolism a little bit, or it's Aquarius and Pisces kind of merge together in the sense when he gets submerged underwater, and the sacrifice part representing the sacrifice of the I am, or the high one. Well, that could be the point where his father gets soul sucked by the dweller of the deep, right? Because after that sacrifice, that's when he gets his soul sucked out. Yeah, what do you think? Could be.
Yep. This is one of the things that we talk about a lot in the conspiratorial realm is, you know, these guys who think that they're calling the shots, who are, you know, the front men for the evil, for the darkness. You know, there's always a bigger fish above them, and that bigger fish, like Gordy Rose says.
Oh yeah, there's always like the next level up.
Yeah, they don't give
the top one.
Yeah, they don't give a fuck about those middlemen, and they will throw them away. That's why we had thousands of corporate CEOs step down in a year. They don't give a fuck. They're all throwaway pawns in the big scheme of things. And just a real quick point, I just got to point out, you know, we're seeing more and more Cthulhu symbolism as we go forward, you know. And for a lot of people, like out on that west coast, out on that left coast, they think it's all fun and games, and they're real cute about it. You know, you look up Cthulhu, and there's like fan clubs and whatever, and they're real cute about it. But some of that shit that we read about the vampire cults, they frown on that cutesy wootsy bullshit. They take themselves very seriously. So on one level, you got these guys, these cartoonists who are like making zodiacs with Cthulhu monsters, and oh, look at me, we can play Dungeons and Dragons. But they're just fucking pawns playing into a real dark agenda. And then this is also, if you missed it on the weave, I have it in my mind that the Marvel Avengers series is a hail back to the Merovingian bloodlines. And the Merovingian bloodlines, something really interesting about them is they don't claim a divine right to rule. They don't claim to be that their mother had a virgin birth. They're claiming that their matriarch, many matriarchs past, were raped by sea monsters, and that's where that's where this Cthulhu bullshit is going to take you. Is not up. It's all about dragging people down.
And we brought that up in the weave. The Merovingian, Mer is the sea, Vin is like wine. Wine is symbolic of blood. The Merovingian, I think, is a name encoding sea-blooded.
Yes. And so
they got salty blood. They're salty.
Yeah. And just some cultural things to think about is this is where, you know, the king of the Franks versus the Anglo-Saxons, you know, that's where the cultural line in the sand is being drawn here. And I don't think anybody has the fucking right to rule anybody, whether your grandma was raped by Jesus Christ himself. It doesn't matter what happened to your grandma. But it gives us clarity when we see these signs and symbols, who they're hailing back to, what family that they're pledging allegiance to. And it's not fun and games.
Not at all. Not at all. So driving forward, yeah, we see the twins, if you will. They're not exactly twins. They ride the dragon. Dragon almost gets its soul sucked out by the dweller in darkness. You know, they almost lose their inheritance in that metaphorical sense. But then we get the archer shot. Magically shoots the Cholulu right in the neck.
Yes.
Saving the day. And then, like, for sure, a real high Aries type warrior moment is when Shang-Chi is falling through the air. It's actually a pretty awesome scene, in my opinion. A good climactic scene. I don't know if I can.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But he's like falling through the air and controlling the rings and shoots them into the creature's mouth.
Yep.
More mouth symbolism.
And then they churn up the monster from inside. And then he pulls them all out with the big kung fu. What is that move called?
They call it a Kamehameha, which is a Dragon Ball Z reference, but
nice.
You know, it's very Hadouken like as well.
Yeah. So I want to point out with Katie's shot, with that that was her only shot. She wasn't shooting. Well, she was shooting arrows, but that was the one that counted. Was the one where she shot the dragon in the throat. That's the time. That's the moment where she said, "Holy shit!" But she was saying it about herself. That was the moment she realized that she's a badass too. And I think that was really interesting that at first she was externalizing the hierarchy by saying holy shit, by being impressed by somebody else. But in that moment, she was saying holy shit for her damn self.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I think we're there. Guys.
Yeah, man.
I think we can wrap this up.
We hit all the good stuff.
It's good stuff.
There's a couple other spots, like more 10 symbolism. I mean, we really can't get it all. The whole movie, you'd have to depict it scene by scene. But there's the last maybe point that I thought of was how when his father, this is right back in the middle of the movie, when he ran away from his father, his dad knew where he was the whole time. And he said, I gave you 10 years to live your life. So more 10 stuff, but we already kind of dug into that really well. So what do you guys think? What movie should we do next? Maybe people can let us know on Telegram or in the chat right now.
I have 2 hanging chads before we.
Oh, please. Yeah. Hanging chads. Get all of those.
Two quick hanging chads. One is in the Easter egg scene at the end, where they're regaling their friends with the details of the battle at the bar. And they're telling them all the details. They're being completely forthright and just speaking the truth. And their friends are just sitting there. They can't even hear it. It's inconceivable. It just is not part of reality for them.
And this no nuts guy on the left with his little foo-foo girly drink.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So they can't even conceive of their abilities that they found within themselves. So this girl, she starts waving her hands around and she's like, "You're telling me that all this mumbo jumbo. Well, when she's waving her hands around, strangely enough, behind herself, a portal is invoked.
I noticed that too. She was doing this motion like Wong would do to open the portal.
You got it. So she is almost unknowingly, it's almost as though she is doesn't even realize her own abilities. But even though we know Wong is opening the portal, but it has this weird parallel that it's almost like she's opening it but she's in denial of her own ability.
Or the chi itself is controlling her to do it because it's happening around her. Therefore, she can't help but to be a conduit for.
Oh, nice. Nice. Just like we all reflect inner and outer world.
Yes.
But she's unconsciously doing it, whereas the heroes have learned that they're
great
part
point.
of this.
Great point, Gordy. That she's almost obeying a the compulsion she doesn't acknowledge.
Right. And she's her subconscious, she's doing it subconsciously, but acknowledging it, not knowing until she actually sees Wong walk out of the portal itself.
Right. And then what does Wong do? He comes right in between them. He splits the lovers with a
Drinks
portal.
her drink.
Right. So this is the summer solstice. Wong is walking out of the summer solstice dividing line, the gate up at the top, and he splits the lovers and he drinks her essence. He steals her drink, and he drinks her. He looshes her because she's unaware that there are forces and elements in high places.
And then they all go out drinking together and sing Hotel California at the karaoke bar.
And they sing Hotel California at the karaoke bar. And I just want to point out that Hollywood is no longer in California. This is a
very good point.
Yes, this is a watch over here and don't look at what the hand is doing. This Hollywood's in Georgia now. And that's just something to think about. That's really, really something to think about. That's not just the Georgia Guidestones. We had those 100 headless goats floating down the Chattahoochee River.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I never even made the connection that maybe that has something to do with the Hollywood migration.
Yeah, buddy. There's so much to talk about with that. Chattahoochee. There's a lot of mercury ingredients to that spell that happened very recently. So I just wanted to point that out, that they want people to geomantically, they want people to direct their animosity towards California, and that's not where it's at. That much like I don't think Jerusalem is over there where everybody thinks it is. I think the real Jerusalem is still rooted in Spain. And there are high spells afoot when they send your direction of your energy, your animosity or your concern, whatever, when they put it in one spot, but it doesn't really belong there. There's a lot to think about with that. So just wanted to put that forward. The Hotel California.
Classic art of war, martial arts maneuver.
You got it, man. Yep. Decoy. Okay, those are my hanging chads.
Cool.
Gordy, got any hanging chads?
No, man. I wouldn't know what to
focus on.
What to focus on. Right? There's this. Well, and this is what happens every single time we all talk. Is there's 100 little more points of light on that fractal that we need to go look in that part of that whatever Mandelbrot set that is, that because it never ends. It's one illusion after one. Once we drop one illusion, there's going to be another one after that and another one after that.
Yeah.
But we're getting through them. We're wading through this shit. Eventually, maybe we'll get one answer.
Something that happened last time that we did this with the Eternals. The next morning, I had like realizations coming to me, like from processing it overnight, and so I was like putting little details we forgot in the comment section. So maybe if there's any hanging chads that come up from this, people can check it in the comment section.
We could probably do another one on Eternals, actually, because Cheney's got a whole different idea of this thing completely.
Somebody should have somebody on their show, and we could revisit the whole thing. Cheney doesn't do visual though. She's like strictly audio, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, we ought to get her in on one of these sometime.
That's it. We'll have her come in with us.
Yeah, I think we could. I think we could. I like doing it monthly, but we'll see. Maybe one of these months we'll do an extra bonus round because this is fun.
Yeah,
Gabriel, I got to give you props, man. You really carried us through the last 45 minutes. You made it through the 5.5 hour weave last night. Maybe you got some good sleep after that or something, but Man, doing 6 to 8 hours on the air within less than 48 hours is no mean feat. And we just cranked out 3. So thanks, guys. Grateful.
Hard work, you guys, man.
It's a job, y'all. It's a job. Should consider supporting us. It's not like completely just sit down and go. There's a lot that goes into it. Even something fun, just for fun, like these Marvel decodes. But Will, I think when we decide the next movie, watch out for us to announce that, like on the InnerVerse and probably Weaving Spiders telegrams. I'll try to announce that earlier next time in case someone out there wants to watch the movie that we're going to talk about ahead of time. Yeah. And I hope you all enjoyed it. I really appreciate the people that have been around from the beginning and that are listening to the replay. And awesome to have you with us, everyone. And Gordy, Gabriel, always a pleasure to work with you, gentlemen.
You too, Chance. I appreciate you doing this.
Y'all are dependable as can be.
Yeah, man. Much love, everybody.
Thank you, gentlemen. Fun.
Much love. As Gabe would say, strength and love.
Strength and love.